Thank you, President Trump. Now I'm going to buy some mother F bleep guns.
Everyone, it's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at GetTrumpWatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Hello, humans. This is your power report for today, October the 9th, 2025. I am Dan. I'm here with Bam, who's on screen with me now.
That's me.
That's you. Good to see you, as always. I don't know if the feeling's always mutual, but we out here. Yeah, so here's the schedule for here's the schedule for today. As Bam has noted in the chat, I'm sick. Apparently, I have the opposite of what Michael Jackson got, if you will, and
Death.
As no, lack of interest in children. Yeah, it's the opposite of what Michael Jackson. Anyways, I'm Bill Maher when the crowd is forced to laugh at his jokes. Anyways, my voice is just barely coming back. Yesterday, I was not able to speak this much. Today, my voice sounds like a shell of its former self, which should be everyone's dream, honestly, on the show, for me to be having not the ability to speak so everyone else can. But what the plan going into this episode was anyways, because of October 7th, because of it being 3 years of this atrocity, officially 2 years. Sorry. Really? 2 years? Oh shit, gotta change the title. We're entering our 3rd year. How about that? Let's say. And I was looking over the previous two, well, not quite. We did an October 7th episode after October 7th. I remember I was traveling at the time. I didn't necessarily watch the episode. I remember I had things to say, and I remember food poisoning off a burrito at the time. But we did a recording of an episode about a month later in November of 2023. with Ben, Dixon, and Emma. And that was a real joy to rewatch again. I hadn't seen that episode in a while. So I'm going to play a little bit of that. And then in 2024, for the October 7th episode, we did an interview with Kumars Salehi, and you and Bam and Kumars got to debate a little bit about Iranian politics as it relates to October 7th. And then myself and Kat Abughazaleh, who at the time was not running for Congresswoman in for a seat just outside of Chicago, but now is. She was on the show, and we were talking about her Palestinian identity and how she brings that to October 7th. And it's so funny watching that interview in retrospect, knowing what happens with her in the future and how she's talking about politicians and politics. And I don't want to spoil it, but I'll say it's a nice moment to see someone who's just like, yeah, no, she said it. That's pretty much what she's doing. She's about her words. So that's cool to see. So for Bam wanting me to run for office one day, maybe there's hope there. Maybe there's a model. But yeah, I kind of wanted to throw to you, Bam, and about overall thoughts. That'll come a little bit later. Basically, I'll be playing those in an hour or so. I'll start playing through those. But I wanted to start with your thoughts. 2 years out. This is actually a really interesting time to speak because today was announced. Just before the Nobels get announced, so, he was really trying for it. Trump, it was announced that a ceasefire deal had been reached. Finally, something that Biden was never able to do. I'm gonna try to get through it, I swear. A ceasefire deal was reached between Hamas and Israel. They have signed it. As is customary with a ceasefire, Israel has already broken it. And so we'll see how long it quote unquote lasts. But yeah, I want to get your thoughts on it as far as it's going right now. And in the context of it being 2 years and 2 days of this genocide.
Well, I mean, I'll just keep it current. And maybe we can talk about all the things that have happened in these 2 years. But, this whole peace deal has been announced, and the way I'm seeing it is that it's going to be similar to the one that happened in January. There'll be, I think there's like 30 hostages left, maybe 40, and like 20 are dead. I can't remember the numbers, but
that's about the proportion.
Right. Like, I think that there will be some hostages released. There will be some Palestinian prisoners. I'm sure most of them like former Hamas members or like Hamas family members released from prison. And then they'll get back to fighting, because this peace plan doesn't address like what's supposed to happen in Gaza or even the West Bank. Like, if Israel does, withdraw the troops from Gaza City, which I doubt they will, but if they do withdraw, the last time there was a ceasefire, they just like amped it up in the West Bank. So we'll see if that happens again. I feel like it will, because I think that the goal in Gaza is still for there to be some kind of new situation where Tony Blair's the governor and whatever. Like, I don't think that they are done with that dream yet. I did watch some videos of some different like Palestinians celebrating the ceasefire, and I did have a horrible thought.
I'm not gonna. This is gonna go even the beginning.
I'm not gonna do it because I did have a thought, and I was just like,
Bam, just say it.
I'll wait a little bit. Because it's too early. People are still listening right now. But
I'm just gonna say, like, people were celebrating the ceasefire, and I saw a video where, and I teased about this just 2 minutes ago. I saw a video where an apartment building had been hit by an Israeli like missile strike. They were trying to pull a child out from the rubble, and the reason they were back in that apartment building was because they had heard about the ceasefire, and so they were like, "Oh, we're good then, right?"
No, of course not. Like Israel's gonna break the ceasefire. I'm sure they're still breaking it.
Also, keep talking. I'll be right back. I have to adjust some stuff because of my heater.
Okay, pause. Israel's probably going to be breaking the ceasefire like for every single second, but I think the real issue is what's supposed to happen because, like, I want everybody to understand. Is that a spider? No, I want everybody to understand something about what's happening in Gaza and like what Gaza is. Because I think that it is easy for people to, although this is like Israel's line, like everybody in Gaza is Hamas, I think it is like easy to kind of fall into that mindset to think that like Hamas is like the real representation of the people of Gaza. And it's like not for real. Like Hamas just wants their people out of prison. So like they're gonna get like their people out of prison and give those hostages back, and like it's like okay, like that's good for us. Like they don't really care if civilians are gonna die and like babies and apartment buildings get blown up. Like they don't really care like that. So like what's a benefit for Hamas is not necessarily a benefit for the people of Gaza. Hamas has already said that they are willing to forego any governance in the future of Gaza. They already said that a long time ago. I feel like they said that in the first ceasefire. So if it ends up being that, you know, the Trump Gaza Riviera plan happens, like Hamas doesn't care, you know, like if it gets to a point where there's just like, okay, like, you know, y'all got to go, like they're just going to leave, you know, they're going to go to Egypt or, you know, Iran or Qatar or something like that. Like they'll be fine. Oh, going back to the Nobel Peace Prize, I did see something that said that the submissions for the Peace Prize were supposed to be done by like the end of January. So I don't know if he actually got his thing in, but but we'll see. But like Donald Trump is the only person that cares about the Nobel Peace Prize. Like who the hell cares about that? Like nobody, like we don't know, like nobody cares about that, dude. Like give it to the fucking Taliban. Like who cares? But yeah, this ceasefire peace plan, so to speak, I am not very optimistic. I don't think it talks about like some kind of full withdrawal or like a rebuilding plan, you know, like it's not about that. Like it's just like really just Trump's ego. Like, hey, I want there to be peace, even if it's for like 2 days, and then we can say Hamas broke the deal, and you know y'all can do whatever you want, and then we can invade freaking Oakland after that. So yeah, I'm not too optimistic, unfortunately. And you know, but I do want to kind of talk about how we got to this point. Like I want to revisit. I mean, we're going to talk about October 7th in the stuff that we play later, but I do want to like recap, you know, this terrible genocide.
Please do. Yes, I know there's a hissing noise happening behind me. That's just the way my heater works, apparently.
Oh, I can't even. I can't. I don't know if I'm hearing it or not.
Seriously, you're not hearing it? Wow.
I can't tell if it's just my computer. I can't tell if it's just my computer.
Well, I'm sure people can tell because it's like crazy loud. But I'm like, if you can't tell, I'm going to say this is an incredible microphone, and I'm going to become an unpaid sponsor. But yeah, the heater in my building, it just started kicking in because like it's now starting to get cold in New York, and I'm like, Oh yeah, this is a pre-war building. So like, there's no way I can control the thermostat. There's no thermostat, dude.
Turn this shit on and turn it off when you're hot.
No. There's a valve somewhere in the basement of this building that's been painted over 5 times that is set to whatever is the legal requirement for heat. And like, that's what controls the building for however many 100-odd units are in this bitch. So
that's hilarious.
This is not gonna because if people can hear this, I'm sure that people are saying that in chat they can't hear it. So okay, that's great to know. I'm also holding it really close to my mouth just to be careful. But I knew it. You know, one of these days, Bam is gonna outgrow the Diddy jokes. But
I'm not.
No. But yeah, you were talking about recapping how we got here, and so
just quickly, just a quick.
Yeah. So 3,000 years ago, there. No.
Never heard.
In 1940.
I wasn't going to recap it that far.
I know. But I'll tee you up like this. One of my, I think this was a thing that was really obvious at the moment, but it's been lost to time since then. But I think, to the extent that historians exist or are cared about or, will be useful in the near or distant future, if we want to look back on what led Hamas to do their attacks on October 7th, the normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia is probably going. That's funny, bad lefty. Bam's history of Judaism. But the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel were likely a catalyst, maybe not the catalyst, probably one of the bigger ones though. But I would say like those talks were happening in the backdrop of September, August, just months in the weeks before then. And yeah. And it was a very similar 9/11 situation from what I remember. Mossad, Israeli intelligence, were supposed to be aware, and I haven't seen this much coverage, but I think I saw some coverage that like Netanyahu may have even been aware of the October 7th attacks. And of course, there's this whole like Hannibal directive that the Israeli military has that's like, if Israelis has to die, like, it'll come out in the wash. So
the Biden administration confirmed that Egyptian intelligence informed Israeli intelligence about the impending October 7th attack. Like the Biden administration confirmed, like Egypt said it, and then the Biden administration confirmed that. So, I mean, the prevailing evidence, and I think like one of the biggest fears for Netanyahu, and one of the reasons why he's keeping this war going is because the one thing Israel will do is put a former leader on trial. Like, yo ass will end up in court if you are a former Israeli prime minister or president. They will do that. Because I think one of them fools is in jail right now. Is it Barack? I can't remember, but
don't tease me with a good time.
So yeah, but it was my opinion that was the reason why Hamas did the October 7th attack. I did hear some other pundits say that also, like after not after I said it, like they saw it from me, but like after I said that, I did see some other pundits that I believe know what they were talking about say that, but it wasn't something that I saw very much. But I think a lot of that is because either a lot of people don't know much about like what's going on in the Middle East like that, or it was like pro Hamas people who were like, they just want to make it seem like Hamas was freedom fighting when they did that. So
well, also, and I want to like just stick on there because to the media aspect of things, there was also, we don't have media in America right now. What we have are the, connections of maybe formerly once great journalists, right? Like, a journalist retires, but their son gets the deputy version of their job, or the daughter does, or like a niece or cousin or whatever. You look at half of the roster on the New York Times, and a lot of people in like there have parents who are former journalists at other big publications, right? And the New York Times has been historically problematic. Like, you can go back on any issue and you can see them being on the wrong side of it. And like, for every article where it's like, oh, they let someone on the opinion section with like, half a conscience, it's like 10 other things for like, why teaching your daughters phrenology will help keep them away from vicious thugs like Emmett Till. Like, you'll have shit like that in the New York Times the whole time. But like, I mean to say this because in thinking about where I am right now, I think about the Fareed Zakarias, the Friedmans, like all these people who are like in these high positions, who are supposed to be deconstructing global international relations for a Western American audience. Nowhere to be found, and mostly peddling the Hamas ripped unborn babies out of pregnant women and use the babies to do unspeakable acts. And it's just like, we were never going to get a real view of that story. And that was even before you saw the Trump administration come in and do this really full court press assault on the media. This was when the media was already kind of like being sold for parts behind the scenes by the private equity world, by the tech sector, by a lot of really wealthy interests, etc. So like, I think the reason why you're not able to see a lot of these, like why these things happen in the moment, which is why I like having these things documented, so I can go, oh, we were talking about that back when it was real fresh, but now no one talks about that anymore. But that's like real key information. I think that's a factor too. Like a continuing story you can't tell the story of Israel-Palestine from, literally 1947 onwards without that part of that story being about, the Chomsky-Herman propaganda model and how the media manufactures consent for all types of different stuff and how none of us are immune to it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure with this with this situation, you definitely got to like know some history. I will say this though, I can't remember what channel it was. It might have been like the Times of London. I can't remember, but I did watch a woman. She was talking to John Bolton, and she referred to what's happening in Gaza as a genocide multiple times, and he did not push back on it. And I think that she was willing to say it because the UN said it. And if he would have pushed back, she'd be like, well, look, that's what the United Nations said.
Was this a recent interview?
It was probably last week when I watched that.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, because like to that media point, to like put a bow on it, 2 years later, now you have a lot of journalists who are willing to use the genocide word. Like you're still getting knocked on YouTube for saying it, but so many people are saying it now, and so many mainstream outlets who don't have to censor themselves as much because they have a special whitelisting thing in YouTube. Because it's become socially acceptable to say that, everyone's now saying it. And you're seeing former Obama officials too, who, because they don't have to, I mean, all the way up from as high as Kamala Harris to people who are in the Biden, Defense Department apparatus, they're saying like, yeah, we at a certain point we realized we shouldn't have done that. That was, a problem. What's going down there is horrific. We weren't really grappling with that. To find, like it's on deaf ears because these are the exact people who could have done something about it on day 219 or day 119 or day 19, right? Like, but I think history is already turning on this. And not completely, but history's already turning on this to the point where the people involved want to get themselves on the record as putting them some distance from it so that their kids want to keep their last names when they get older.
Well, I was going to say something. I forgot. Anyway, going back to just like the beginning of this situation, like definitely Hamas like had an agenda, in my opinion, and I feel like for their own kind of goals, you know, it was they feel like, or they felt like it was achieved, but I think like now they're probably seeing that it's not going to deter whatever relations that Saudi Arabia and Israel are going to have. Like it just doesn't matter. Like, you know, genocide or not, like the governments of the Arab world don't care about, you know, 60, 100,000 Palestinians dying. They just don't care. So, you know, at this point, it's just like, okay, like we'll see what happens after. Like, are we going to see a full withdrawal? Are we going to see, you know, a bunch of people from Gaza getting expelled? Where are the, you know, where are people going to live? Like, where, you know, who's going to rebuild in Gaza? Like, I don't know. You know, it's going to be a long, it's going to be a long time before we see any real change. Like these, you know, I'm thinking about like the young people, like the young teenagers who have seen their homes demolished and are just not going to see any hope for their lives for at least like 10 years, you know? I don't necessarily think that, you know, there's this notion that, you know, you can't destroy Hamas, like it's an ideology, you know, and there's kind of like that notion, like, you know, you're breeding more terrorists. Like, I don't believe in that. But it's just like, what kind of lives are they going to lead? You know, like Trump and the Trump idea was just like have them serve the drinks on the Riviera. Netanyahu's cabinet and them, yeah, Netanyahu's like cabinet and them, like they want to get like Israeli settlers there. I don't feel like Israel though is powerful enough to expel all those people into other countries in the region. Like Israel or America, like there's no level of force that they can put on Egypt or Jordan or whoever to get like 1 million people out. It just can't happen. Like, so you know, obviously the situation is still very unfortunate. You know, I saw the people in Israel celebrating the ceasefire. I saw the people in like Khan Yunis celebrating the ceasefire. I seen some of them guys in Khan Yunis celebrating, and I was like, "Damn, you got a nice fresh haircut." Well, okay, that was the thing I was gonna, but haircut kind of fresh, dog. Yo, let me watch some Israeli news channels. What they talking about? Because that haircut is fresh. I mean, but
no, I can't. No, I can't.
Don't join me.
You're about to get me started, and I reeled it back in.
Don't join me. Don't join me.
For folks watching, there's going to be another moment in the future of the stream, but in the past, where Bam does a similar thing, and it's very funny. But continue.
Yeah, but no, I'm pretty much done. Honestly, it's just I'm not feeling as optimistic about this ceasefire. I was a little bit optimistic about the ceasefire in January. But
it's like hard not to
yeah,
be, at least for that one.
Like we saw the ceasefire in January break down, I want to say in March, and then what happened was Israel stopped the aid from coming in. And then when they quote unquote reopened it, they brought in the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, who was shooting people while they were getting aid. Like dozens of people getting killed every day while they're going to get aid. So it's like, I can't really be optimistic for this ceasefire. Like, I got to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm fully on the same page. I think anyone watching this, there are times in politics where it's like, you know, if you have a certain opinion or like, you know, with certainty, if something's going to happen, you can't trust that person because there's just like, it's too much crazy stuff going on. I think the first time, God, this is so dark. I think the first time Biden and Netanyahu had this like fake ceasefire thing going on, like that one was flimsy, but it was like the first one. You saw so much destruction. I was looking, the official death toll number is 60,000 or somewhere around that, maybe like a little bit more, give or take, maybe 65. And when we did that episode in November, Israel already hit 10,000. And so I just want to say, like, at the rate at which they were, let's just take the numbers at face value. All right. 10,000 in 1 month, 55,000 over 23 months. Like, that's a lot of destruction in a short amount of time. And so even months after that, you're like, okay, obviously any sense of a ceasefire, you hate everyone involved, but it gives you hope. And then you see that get crushed, and you see other ceasefire deals get crushed. And you hear Netanyahu basically throwing parties at his, you know, home in Tel Aviv with high-ranking members of the Likud party going like, I can't believe Biden's still letting me do this shit. And he's going to let me do it again. And he's going to let me do it again. And he's going to let me do... And all you hear is Biden going, man, it's fucking Bibi's a piece of shit, man. Like, you know, like, you would just... The most mealy-mouthed stuff from the Democrats. You know, strongly worded letters. That's all you were hearing from then. Yeah, you lose hope in the ceasefires based off of that. And then Trump comes in, and you're like, okay, genocide Kamala's a cop, like, folks, this is your moment. Maybe, you know, Trump comes in, and he's a bull in a china shop, and, you know, Bibi treats him different, and, you know, maybe he strikes a deal so that Bibi can make Trump look good in his inauguration, and, like, he ends, like, you know, whatever, as long as the suffering stops. And, you know, not only is Trump, I'm not even going to make the joke. Not only is Trump bad at the art of the deal, but everyone he negotiates with is better. Like, literally everyone. From Javier Milei down in Argentina all the way up to Bibi Netanyahu. Everyone's a better negotiator.
Well, I think the thing is, like, Trump with like Netanyahu and Putin, like, he has the same agenda as them. Like, he doesn't care about what's actually going on. With Milei, he got flu flammed. That was the biggest flu flam ever, actually.
But like, not to veer off into it, but, like, you know, just to touch on this for a moment, because this was one of those things where Trump felt Argentina was one of those things where the bailouts for the economy is one of those things that Trump felt like he had to do for the base, especially right now, because Javier Milei is the fixture, the play toy, if you will, of the libertarian, like, crypto fascist billionaires in Silicon Valley. Your Elon Musks, your Peter Thiels, your Curtis Yarvins. I was, back in the day, I would go on this, I'm sure many of the viewers here know, I would go on this libertarian show, Larry Sharpe. He ran for governor of New York on the libertarian ticket. And he still thinks libertarians exist. It's really cute. But we at this time, I was on a panel with Larry Sharpe, I want to say 2 or 3 other, like, libertarian women, and it was me. And I remember I still have my notes from this because I was just angrily scribbling things down. And there was one, there's a black woman there who I still follow, because, you know, that was very funny to watch. But she was like, yeah, what Javier Milei's going down in Argentina, it's really good. It's, you know, it's really happening. It's like, these people have no reading of history, because if you were to tell me, oh, some Americans are going to try to, you know, dip their hands into South American, you know, politics on the coast, and they're going to bring their economic ideals of limited government and giving private enterprise whatever they want to, and free flow of capital for the rich and austerity for the poor, I would have been like, yeah, Chicago boys, Chile, Salvador Allende. Like, we've done, like, you know, run it back. We've done this so many times, but I think there's at least enough people in Silicon Valley who are like, yeah, one more again. And they feel like that they are better than the Chicago boys. And it's like, I don't know if they're better. Honestly, I think they're dumber, but so is the environment they're in. So they're able to get away with much more. So I say all that to say, Trump comes to Javier Milei with a bailout for his, you know, perfect, beautiful, pristine Argentinian economy. Remember Javier Milei and Elon Musk with the chainsaw? Even before that happened during the Trump administration, that was Milei's thing. He would campaign with that chainsaw. Yeah, he was saying, yeah, we're going to do all this cutting. We're going to make Argentina great again. We do too much spending. I hope it sounds familiar, because it sounds like what we're doing in America. This is your wish, America. This is your future. Fast forward 2 years later, Argentina has runaway inflation. Dollar is useless. Now, we're going to get something worse in America. We're going to get stagflation pretty soon. I'm willing to bet, not a lot, but I'm willing to bet next October's 7th anniversary, we're very clearly going to be in stagflation, which is like, get some canned food. That's all I'm going to say. It's just like, stock up, dude, because it's going to be weird. But all that to say, farmers in America were supposed to get, you know, be able to sell off their soybeans, especially now it's getting colder and it's getting winter time. Most of those soybeans go to China. China's like, okay, fuck them beans, because we're in a trade war with them. China's able to source a lot of those soybeans from Argentina. Argentina can handle some of that supply, not all of it, but they're also going through an economic crisis. So Trump is taking some of that money that would have come, like, you know, he's trying to say, oh, the soybean tariffs that we would be giving, we're going to use that as a bailout to Argentina. So Argentina gets the double dip. They're getting all this new business because with Americans not in the market, the Chinese are like, we want these soybeans. And so Argentina gets a nut. And then Argentina gets a double nut because Donald Trump's like, here's $20 billion, guy. And that's on libertarianism. That's on small, limited government. That's on not taking handouts. That's on pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And that's on, property rights and letting, I'll say this unsarcastically, that's on letting billionaires do whatever they want with your country. America, this is your future. Except, again, last point, those bailouts are not going to go to you. You want to know what happened in Argentina after Javier Milei got that $20 billion? He threw a concert where he was singing. I'm not even going to play that shit for you.
He was singing "Born in the USA."
He's got the hair for it.
And maybe even a third nut because they lowered their prices to China too. But yeah, going back to the Middle East,
Milei was singing "I will vote."
He invited those people down there because they all got deported.
Yeah, it's actually they have one of the facilities down there, and I'm not. No. Back to
going back to the Middle East. Yeah, it's hard to be excited about this ceasefire. I think it's like just Trump's last push to get the Nobel Peace Prize, which once again, like, he's the only one that cares about it. In the meantime, you're sending troops to Chicago, like, how about a ceasefire here, buddy? How about that? Meanwhile, ICE agents are shooting preachers in the face from the roof, dude. Like, can we have a ceasefire in America, please?
ICE is already, and this is what we know of outside the detention facilities. ISIS shot about 5 people.
Yeah,
at least 3.
Killed at least one. Killed at least one. I don't know about the others.
Yeah, they've shot at least 5 people. They've killed. I mean, they killed one by shooting. There was that one guy in California who was fleeing like a cannabis farm, and he like fell off of something and died because of the fall. So like
that counts. That counts.
In a video game, that's at least an assist. All right, so like I hate to be glib about it, even in there, but Forrest made a really good point that the guy who the Nobel Prize is named after created the prize because he felt guilty for creating dynamite.
Right.
Like, he was like, I created one of the least peaceful tools in the history of man. I'm gonna put my name on a peace prize. Yeah. And there's the other, lesser. You're in a party that someone could get Luigi'd at. I'll just say that. If part of the dinner conversation are people joking about how the Nobel in economics is not a real Nobel Prize, or like, oh, the Nobel in physics isn't a real one. That's not, it's like, because you hear that conversation at Ivy League schools all the time, and I'm just like, y'all need to find God. Anyways, Gaza, that's right.
Yeah, look, it's over. We'll see what happens. I guess that's basically what we're at right now. If the IDF continues to bomb and continues to push into Gaza City, we're gonna hear about it. But the Trump administration is still going to talk like there's a ceasefire, especially after the hostages come back. Like, I really think it's just a play for the hostages. Let's get the hostages back, and then we're going to just fuck everything up. I think Hamas might be aware of that too. Let's not give them all back.
Oh yeah, their initial thing was like, oh, fuck this, deal where you're saying, oh, if we don't submit to this, you're going to bomb us. It's like,
yeah, obliteration.
We were negotiating a hostage deal, and you bombed where the hostages were in Qatar, in a totally different country, a country that America, by the way, has a treaty with. And
has the biggest base.
Qatar. Usually if you bomb Qatar, America's like mother of all bombs. Mother of all, but Bibi Netanyahu? Oh, never mind.
No, literally, like the last time, like during negotiations, so many senior Hamas people have been killed abroad. It's like, what's the point? Like, we might as well just stay underground, and we do whatever we're doing with these hostage buddies. But yeah, I don't know. Like, we'll see. Like, I mean, I want to be optimistic, but it's just hard. And, it's hard because of all the destruction that Israel's done in Gaza. Like, it's been, like, of course there's, like, whatever. It's a volatile region. So, like, you expect the IDF to do a lot after October 7th attack. Like, you expect that. But, like, there was never like a stated goal by Netanyahu, like, other than we're going to destroy Hamas completely. In the meantime, like, all you're doing is like killing civilians, and Hamas is still there. Like, you can't even get, well, and really this is the actual thing. The reason is because the IDF is just like the most punk ass military in the world. Like, these guys are like terrified of small arms fire. Like, you shoot an AK at these guys, they're running back and they're like sending in the freaking B-52 or whatever. You have like, the way they talk about the Israeli military is like, this is, one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, like, why can't they go get those hostages then? Like, because either they don't want to, or they're really some hoes, really.
I think it's a little column A, a little column B. before we truly get off of this, we also got to talk about the fact that this was the week where you had the Samud flotillas and a couple other different ones, but there were a lot of groups of flotillas that were headed in to, you know, symbolically try to deliver aid into the Gaza Strip. This has happened before at different times. The boats have been intercepted or hit with drones or other like missile fire. Different times they've been held captive, like roughed up a little bit. This time, a bunch of activists were taken by IDF soldiers who, again, it's like, just like you were saying, Bam, same with American cops, same with ICE. These are people who, these are like LA Fitness weekend warriors. They need to lift weights because no one will give them a hug. And so like they can't actually fight anything. And so they need to rough up peace activists who are armed with blankets and diapers. And they have to do that to make an example. So what people are saying who are on the flotilla and they were captured were like, they were blindfolded, they were handcuffed, they were, you know, dragged around. Some people were pulled by the hair. They weren't allowed to talk to lawyers, of course. They were asked to sign papers that would have, you know, been legally dubious because they're like all in Hebrew. No one's able to read it. They brought, I forget if it was like Smotrich or like someone else, but they brought out like a higher up like leader or whatever to like talk to all the hostages, and they separated the Jewish hostages from all the others, and like they called them all terrorists and like made them get on their knees and stuff. There are some people who are saying that Greta Thunberg specifically was like dragged by her hair and forced to kiss the Israeli flag while IDF soldiers recorded it. And it's just like, bam, you react to that, but that's just simply how you get citizenship in Germany nowadays. But Greta, every time a camera is on her, she knows that people are going to ask about the most salacious allegations. And she's been saying like, I'm not going to talk about it because whatever you're hearing about me compares in nothing to what the people of Palestine are dealing with. And so I think that's admirable. I think that's smart. I don't think many people are willing to go through that true like Martin Luther King turn the other cheek type shit. And you know, yeah, Bam and I have had our thoughts about these like different flotillas and like what the overall purpose is, and that the end result was going to be, you know, something involving exactly what we're seeing right now. But I'll still say there is courage to that. And I'll also say that there's been a lot said about how, Spain is going to send their military, Italy's going to send their navy or whatever, and they're going to protect the ships. What you're hearing from Spanish and Italians and other people who are like on the ground and that kind of stuff, that was all symbolic, and all of their navies sent those ships back once the headlines were once the ink was dry in those headlines. So what you are seeing are Italian dock workers. There's a big thing I was just hearing on Electronic Intifada about how the port of Oakland and through the Oakland airport, Maersk and FedEx are shipping components of arms to Israel out of Oakland airport. And so there are dock workers who are doing little moments of solidarity right there. So it's really workers, it's really people, it's not governments, it's not politicians, it's not these international UNs and NATOs. We love the UN, court for putting things on record, but Zoran Mamdani may have a better opportunity to arrest Bibi Netanyahu than the UN court will. So, and I'm not putting any money on that. I'm just saying he has a better chance, and there's still very little chance. So, I mean, that's kind of where we sit at this point. And yeah, I guess, I don't know. Here's a good question. Here's a good FDS style question. in the general sense that you and I would understand and that most people would understand, does Israel's war on Gaza in this iteration, do we do this version of the show next year? And are we talking about something that ended or is like ending?
In 1 year, no.
From now.
No.
Paint a picture of what it looks like to you.
I think there's still going to be fighting. Well, actually, let me take that back. Actually, delete that. Israel will still be bombing and occupying parts of Gaza, 100%. And if there's any rebuilding, it'll be for settlers. Because I think that the Gaza of, October 6, 2023 is not going to happen. Like they are going to, they're like the settlers left Gaza, I want to say 2006 or 2005. It's been 20 years. They're coming back.
I was just typing in the chat, but I'm still, I think I see a similar thing that you do. That's why I said, as the way we would understand it, the war would end, because like, I think, look, I mean, like missiles have been falling down. Missiles were falling down in Gaza in a, we're kind of numb to it right now because it's multiple times a day, every single day for over 700 days at this point. But missiles were still falling down with some regularity, like, every month, every couple of months in Gaza, like before.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Like, yeah, right? And you have flare-ups here and there. But I think, like, it's dark, but it's real. The ultimate goal of Bibi and, the project that Israel is on right now is imperial domination of Palestine, the West Bank, and if there's room for desserts, a little bit of Lebanon, a little bit of Syria, whatever they can for that greater Israel project. I don't think a ceasefire does anything. I think one good analysis of this is the American spigot is running dry. As far as like, if a Democrat is in power, the Democratic Party position, if they get into power, it's going to be someone who is at least a Barack Obama level of skeptic on Israel. And most likely it's going to be our most pro-Palestinian president in American history. Now, I'm not saying that's like, a big bar. I'm not saying that's like, like someone who's going to like fly a Palestinian flag and wear keffiyeh and shit like that. But I'm just saying like, you're going to have our like, not anti-Israel, because that goes down a dark path that apparently Anna Kasparian's interested in now. But like, if a Democratic president gets elected in America again, and that's a big if at this point, they're going to be part of a coalition that is not going to be supportive of limitless, unrestricted aid to Israel. If there is any aid to Israel, it's going to like, there's going to be a very strong push to limit it in some way. Like I can see you get Iron Dome, maybe you get a couple weapons. We'll send you some because, Northrop Grumman's got to get paid. But if you get into another boondoggle, or if you want to try to like go towards Iran, like, I don't know. And, I'm going down too far rabbit hole because like, I don't know if like America would leave Israel out to dry against Iran like that, even under a Democratic president. But I mean all that to say that like, I think Israel looks at it and they go, okay, a Democrat is likely going to close the spigot a little bit of like the aid we get from Israel. A future Republican president, same thing kind of, because you have half of the young Republicans who are against what they're seeing in Gaza for like, it's just terrible to see kids in this condition. And then you have another substantial part of the Republican base, the youth Republican base, that has some more anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic reasons for their hatred of Israel. Either way, that spigot's closing. all you've got are older Democrats and older Republicans who are dying and becoming less and less relevant. And at least the older Republicans have power. And so if Bibi can give Trump what he wants, which is a news cycle, which is even more useless than it's ever been. Like, congratulations, you got 8 hours. Where are the Epstein files? That's what's going to happen, literally. But yeah, Trump wants Bibi was willing to give him a news cycle of Trump got a ceasefire deal with Gaza, and then Trump can run off and do something else and not care about it 2 weeks later. He can focus on the ballroom. And 2 weeks after that, Bibi's going to continue bombing and clearing things out. And it's like, oh, there's still a building there. Let's hit that. We're going to make him go south, then we're going to make him go north, and then we're going to make him go slide to the left, then slide to the right, then freeze, and everybody clap your hands. They're going to do the cha-cha slide with all the remaining people who are within the limits of Gaza until you have people like, they're exhausted from moving and they will give up and they just won't move when the missiles hit, or they will take one of these harebrained scheme ideas to buy people out of Gaza and have them resettle into other places. But I think that Israel wanted the pretext to do this, just like they wanted the pretext to fight with Iran. And they are going to continue with it because it's just too good. It's just too good of an opportunity for them. It's everything they've ever wanted. I don't think they're ever going to get this good of an opportunity again. And I hate speaking in these terms, but this is the way they're thinking about it. And so that's why, for any chance of a lasting peace in Gaza, you at least need to have politicians in power, or like politicians who are seeking power, who are existing in that reality. That you can't reason with people who have already made up their mind. You have to change their reality in a way to where they know that, okay, no, this is serious business and I can't get away with doing all this because I thought I'd be able to go on a, bombing spree of, Western Asia as much as I wanted to, because I have Daddy America's credit card. You no longer have America's credit card, or again, we go into my dream hyperdrive scenario where we're like, Iron Dome, I mean, you can keep it. We have, Steel Dome, and that's the one we're using. You're using the old version. We have the iPhone 26. You have the iPhone 17 or whatever. We're not going to help you with that. We're just going to keep our thing. God bless. That'll change a lot of Israeli foreign policy because they'll know they have to tap the brakes a little bit. But yeah, we're all talking about fantasy right now. I think don't. Obviously hold hope, hold space for the Palestinians and hope they get out of that situation. But if we're talking about the real politics of it, they're not out of the woods yet. And I don't know if they will be out of the woods until you get both an international community and leaders of the UK, the US, Canada, much of Europe, who are Turkey, even, who are willing to be serious about the power trip that Israel is on and the sort of like hegemony that they want to have, and going from sure, just agree with the crazy guy and keep walking on with your day type of relationship that everyone in the Middle East tends to have with Israel to no, actually there's more of us than there are of you, and you're small and we really don't want to bother you, but like you're actually starting to be a problem for us. And the more you start to go like Qatar, Yemen, these are all things that we can like sphere of influence, then Saudi Arabia is going to be like, not quite, buddy, not sure. India might be like, hey man, we have to tap back a little bit. I'm not saying complete taking back from things, but there's so many diplomatic ties and different things that can happen within that region, regardless of what's happening in America.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest one is Azerbaijan. That's where they get most of their oil from. But
didn't I make a deal somewhere in Azerbaijan too? Because I remember he just couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah, no, he ended like the Third World War between Armenia and Azerbaijan. but no,
What ceasefire is going to last longer? Azerbaijan, Armenia, or Israel Palestine?
Right. But no, I agree. I think that, I mean, yeah, I think that the region could do a lot more than America. I do feel like, let's say there's a Democrat president, like, what I think you're going to have more push, like within Congress. Like, there's going to be more people, Congress people introducing stuff to say, like, we need to cut off arms sales to Israel. I still stand by, like, I don't know, like, who's more powerful between, these politicians or the defense industry. But, I don't think, I think that stuff's going to last for a while, but there's going to be more people that are like, we have to do the moral thing when it comes to whatever Israel's doing. And we'll see whatever they're doing in the future. I just, like, it's going to be difficult for Israel no matter what, because colonial projects are difficult, especially because it's a small piece of land. Like, colonial projects are difficult in large areas of land. It wasn't easy for the English here in America, because there's indigenous people that will resist. In Gaza, like, if they really plan on settling, like building settlements and stuff within Gaza, that's so much resources. It's even more militarization of the country, and that internal militarization always ends up turning back against the leaders. Like, those young people don't want to be having their deployment to go guard some settlement in okay, that's funny. Guarding some settlement in Gaza, like, and they're getting, like, pot shots every once in a while. Like, it's just like, I just can't really foresee it working. But who knows what they want to do at this point? It is settler colonial societies are. It's hard to understand because it's such a, like, backwards, terrible way to be. It's just like, what is your fucking goal, dude? Like, so I'm hopeful more in, like, the future beyond this ceasefire. And most of that is just because I don't think that whatever Israel wants to do, at least, like, the worst people in Israel who have power right now, I don't think that's going to work. Does that mean, like, the Palestinians' life is going to be, like, so much better? Definitely not.
Yeah, I would, to close the loop, if you know someone who has any sort of, like, definitive answer on when, we'll get Palestinian joy, I get, like truly, like, in that way, in the way where, like, never mind, I'm going to go into, like, a tangent where I'm going to be inescapable. I'm like, when are we going to get to the point where I'm going to go with this crazy analogy, and I'm going to make it as crazy as possible so I get it over with. But there are people who are like, wow, Black Panther coming out as a movie is a landmark moment for racism in America against Black people. For that movie to exist was like, we did it, Joe. We solved racism. Nancy Pelosi did the Wakanda Forever. I forget the Supreme Court justice, but yeah, they all did the Wakanda Forever thing. It was what, like, I don't think we're gonna get to a point. Shit, might be Bam and I in rocking chairs talking about war stories. It might be around then till you get some sort of, like, moment like that where the Palestinian experience and all of its trials and tribulations is, like, can at least be seen more through the lens of art and culture and film and putting all that together, and something that is separate from the constant reality that's happening every single day. And again, you can't even separate that from the Black experience, and you never could, which is why the whole thing is ridiculous. But I mean, like, if any sort of person is saying, like, I know when Palestine will be free, they don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, I don't think anyone currently living in Gaza or the West Bank, or, currently affected by it, can afford to be so like hopeless necessarily. Yeah, I think just the things we continue to do, bearing witness the extent that we can, telling stories, sharing stories. There's a fatigue to it, but also there's, once the starvation thing started really happening, oh, that little starvation thing. But once the photos of starving kids came out, I think that, unfortunately, the other stuff didn't, but that really started to resonate with a lot of people. And it shocked liberal elites in the way that, like, oh, ICE raids and violence by ICE didn't shock liberal elites, but the blickening of Charlie Kirk did shock liberal elites, right? Like, I don't know what that threshold is, but it managed to reach that point to where, because people were talking about it, because people were doing this, now more people were willing to say, oh, I'm seeing kids being systemically starved. I know what this looks like. I know what this is. You're not going to tone police me for calling it a genocide anymore. And most of those tone police people stopped. There are people that didn't. There were people who were like, there's that New York Times article that was like, we're going to debunk the conspiracy theory about starving kids in Gaza. Do you know this kid actually had a pre-existing condition that also happens to involve what happens when you are in an open-air prison under the Israeli government. But when people this time around, they saw the round of hunger, they saw the Hezbollah try to excuse it, and they had the correct visceral reaction was, how dare you tell me that not only the thing I am seeing with my own lying eyes I'm not seeing, pun not intended, but how dare you tell me that the thing I'm seeing, which are starving babies, is actually anti-Semitic for me to be even seeing this. Well, it's not, and it's like, that broke a lot of people, and unfortunately in a really bad direction. But hey, like, this is the policy of the Israeli government. This is kind of the impact, is that a lot of people are going to conflate these things, and some people are going to take it in a really dangerous direction, unfortunately. I think the point I was trying to get to with all of that is that it's important for us to continue sharing this message, because you never know exactly when it's going to start to resonate, or when it's going to hit like a really high point of like, okay, now we're all really on board with this. Now more people are getting on board. Now we're able to pressure governments more. Like, you think it should be already happening, but no, it's momentum. Every movement is momentum, and you start at zero sometimes, like on October 7th. There's one kind of like mini scuffle that Bam and Emma have in the interview I'm going to play about whether, and I think it's kind of funny, about whether voters will care in the 2024 election about Palestine. And y'all were speaking in November of 2023, and I think I like both of your opinions. I think they both hold up in their own ways today. So I'll say that.
Yeah, I feel like I could still argue that they actually didn't. They just thought they did.
But I think it's there, and I'm not going to ask that question. I don't think it's easy to answer. And I told Bam we're going to have an easy show today, and I'm going to stick to it. But I don't know the counterfactual of, if Kamala breaks with Biden on Gaza, does she win? I think she definitely gets more voters and more support. Does she win though? I'm still not.
She might have won. She might have won Michigan, and that was it, basically.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the what if thing, because we don't have the Steve Kornacki big board behind me yet. I'm still setting up the studio, so we can't do that. But yeah, listen, thank you all for. Oh, this was the very last thing I wanted to say and do, because I was talking about people who are spreading lies about what we're even seeing these past couple months in Gaza. with the hunger and all that different stuff. One of these people was Barry Weiss, who was one of these people who, like, yeah, her family are reporters or writers or something like that, if I'm understanding correctly. She's an opinion writer at the New York Times. Like at many workplaces, sometimes they're just people you don't like, and they're kind of the public piñata for everyone in the workplace. And, you know, people just didn't agree with Barry Weiss on anything. She wasn't not allowed to express her opinion, but, you know, sometimes you express your opinion and other people express their opinions, and sometimes their opinion is that your opinion's dumb. And when you're emotionally very weak, criticism of your opinions starts to become like an actual attack on you as a person. And so she threw a fit. She did the whole like conservative victim complex thing. She left New York Times, not only left the New York Times, started her own publication, renamed that publication, did an offshoot of that publication to create a special college for so-called like woke free thinkers who didn't want to be in the realm of cancel culture. It was the University of Austin, she called it. If I'm going back in the past, the intellectual dark web, Barry Weiss, she created that. She's the one who said Dave Rubin is smart. Dave Rubin is an intellectual. Joe Rogan, that's an intellectual. Ben Shapiro, that's the cool kids philosopher. I'm not sure if she wrote that article specifically, but like this is the whole thing she painted us with. And, you know, all it was transparently from the jump was a money grab by some failed Hollywood crash outs and their conservative mega donors backing them. But Barry Weiss, I guess, knew that. A lot of people didn't. And she turned it into a mega grift. Fast forward to today. Conservatives are now buying up all the media companies in America and all the ones that own news networks, try to bend them to be more pro-Trump and more pro-conservative and more pro-capitalism, as if they weren't already. The old CEO of CBS, before Trump got elected the first time, is quoted as saying, if Trump gets elected, it's good for our business. So, like, this is nothing new. But Barry Weiss is now going to be the head of CBS's news division. And a lot of people are scared. Like, oh, you have this ideologue. She's going to come in and turn CBS News, which does do really good straight down the line journalism and reporting. They have news bureaus and teams. Like, they're one of those few people who actually put a lot of resources into that. And they aren't really too partisan, actually. They're like Reuters or AP. Like, they have the Western biases that come with it, but they generally report the news straight. People are concerned and they're scared, like, oh, she's going to mess everything up. She's going to do all these other things. And I want for a moment to point to the best article I've ever seen in The Verge. I sent this to Sachi, and I'm going to read just the first little bit with my broken voice for y'all, so you don't have to be too afraid about this. But the article is, and it reads, it's titled, Memo to Barry Weiss regarding CBS News, you're doomed. The premise of this is that Barry Weiss is a typical trope of what you get in the corporate world, which is a company is going under, the men have sunk it, you hire a woman for the nice, like, oh, look at us, we're progressive, we're trying new things, we're being, better about, the future and everything. And what you're doing is you're hiring a woman to be the face of all of the bad things that are going to happen to that company that you can't stop. People are going to get laid off under Barry Weiss. That was already going to happen because CBS is a dying business that isn't worth anything, that their best assets, which are media properties and streaming, they're getting their ass kicked by Disney and Time Warner on. So this is someone who is managing failure. Narwhal by nature is like, ooh, like Yenda Yacarino? Let me read. Because this is shout out Liz Lopato at The Verge, because this is top tier petty. I really love this. To Barry Weiss regarding, good luck, babe. I honestly can't believe you willingly decided to go into the worst kind of job that exists, management at a dying company. Managing sucks. It sucks even when you like the people you're managing and it's a low stress position. Don't I know it? And I'm sure I don't have to tell you, CBS News is not a low stress position. You're going to get blamed by everyone above you for decisions that are made by people below you, and you're going to get blamed by people below you for decisions that are made by the people above you. You're also going to get blamed for your own decisions just for kicks. You have elected to take a job where the primary purpose is for you to eat shit and own the death of broadcast TV news, a thing that is going to die no matter what you do. Nice work. This is the glass cliff to end all glass cliffs. You're Marissa Mayer at Yahoo without the Googler street cred. You're Nancy Dubuque at Vice Media without the string of hit TV news shows or TV shows. You're Linda Yaccarino at Twitter without the advertiser relationships. You've been hired as a sop to the Trump administration that is actually actively hostile to the actual free press. And you'll be made to oversee wave after wave of layoffs until you quit or get fired and the entire news division is shut down in a final spasm of cost cutting after the next inescapable media merger. No one can save it because CBS News, no one can save CBS News because it was made for a media ecosystem that is now dead. Broadcast TV is circling the drain and its aging audience is drifting towards the great inevitable. Younger people are getting their news from TikTok and Instagram in even greater numbers, and they trust institutional media less than ever. CBS in particular, that's your company now, has the oldest primetime audience in TV. These folks aren't the free press's assiduously courted classical liberals either. It's normie grandparents, a bunch of whom are planning to appear at the next No Kings rally. That's why I'm going to stop right there by basically saying Bari Weiss, she is one of the great examples in media of failing upwards completely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yo, bam. When I say Bari Weiss gets to become the chair of CBS News, I skipped a step. Bari Weiss, her Substack, bam, her blog spot, her Tumblr, her GeoCities got bought by Paramount Skydance Entertainment for a Joe Rogan. They gave her $200 million for a Substack. And they said, hey, you know what? Dummy, we're also going to make you head of CBS News. And I agree with Liz Lopato's take here. They gave you $200 million to be the pain sponge.
Oh, yeah.
Your life is just going to suck. Like Linda Yaccarino, she was the chief operating officer of Elon Musk's Twitter X. Her job was to bring in advertisers to the platform after Elon Musk said, and I quote, advertisers can go fuck themselves. Flips off advertisers at an advertiser, investment meeting to the camera. End quote. Linda Yaccarino's job was to clean that shit up. And now she left and she accomplished nothing. And she's blown through all of her credibility. She's going to write a book and maybe have one of Elon's kids, and she's going to be a millionaire for the rest of her life. It doesn't matter. But there's going to be bad things that are happen. There are going to be bad things going to happen already. But the fact that Bari Weiss is going to be blamed for all of it, whether it's her fault or not, and some of it will be, I think we can find solace in that Bari Weiss will at least be one example of people we don't like experiencing pain, and it'll be kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about Bari Weiss other than the intellectual dark web whole thing that I want to say was like a New York Times magazine or something like that when it came out. I can't remember. Or New York Times, one of those. But yeah, she definitely failed upwards. And who's really mad? I hate to bring this guy up because you're going to go off when I bring him up. But who is really salty seeing that? Cenk Uygur. Ooh, he is real mad.
Dude, Cenk is nope. Bam, bam, bam. Nope. You knew it. I'm just gonna say, I don't know how you would feel being Cenk and looking at Mehdi Hassan and what Zeteo has been able to do in a year and a half. Because, like, you know, both of them are Muslim guys who left MSNBC in a fit of rage because they couldn't say what they wanted to. Both of them used that money to start media companies, or Cenk had a 10-year head start and already had a media company. He was on YouTube when there were no YouTubers. He was a YouTube partner when the YouTube partner program didn't exist. He was making money off of YouTube when you couldn't make money off of YouTube. In 1 year, Mehdi Hassan has one of the biggest Substacks. Zeteo has on-the-ground reporting in Gaza.
That's crazy.
All right, like Al Jazeera's barely got that. I mean, even Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill, they started, and then Scahill at least started The Intercept and then left it, and they did Dropsite News. Dropsite has on-the-ground coverage in Gaza. Like, there are ways to run a business, and there are ways to not run a business, and yeah, it's a lot easier to be a conservative and to fail upwards, but you can be a progressive, and if you're savvy and well-connected and really smart, then you can also make something out of that too. Yeah, I mean, just patting myself on the back, doing nothing. And these interviews, I was looking through them, I was like, oh damn, we can be good at the show sometimes. We kill it sometimes. But yeah, it is nothing more needs to be said on that. You've already gotten me on too much of a tangent, but I think that we're starting to see the climax of a lot of these right-wing figures. I mean, Charlie Kirk needs no explanation, but all of these figures that were kind of bubbling up during the first Trump administration, your Ben Shapiro's, your Charlie Kirk, your Steven Crowder's, now they're getting their taste in the mainstream. And I really want to be careful here, but I'm also using terminology that I've used in the past, even before the events in September 2025, so I'm just going to go with it. Election cycles come and presidential cycles come and presidential cycles go, and usually media follows with that. MSNBC had a rise during Obama and had a fall during Trump, and they never really quite recovered. TYT and other first wave media organizations had a big rise during Bernie and like a big rise during the first Trump, and now they're kind of in like a stasis period. Some of them are landing and kind of thriving a little bit well. Some of them are not so much. They're kind of throwing out. You have a bunch of former Republicans who are creating liberal media organizations like the Bulwark and I've Had It and fucking Pod Save America, who are starting to like build things too, right? And so you're seeing a new wave that's starting to come up, but you get a good 4 years. You get a good 4 years in the limelight and good articles. And what can I say, Hassan? He started this year with like, oh, you're the left's next Joe Rogan, and he's ending the year with, you know, he beats his dog, right? Like,
stupid.
you never. I don't know, maybe this is like the instinct in me that's like, I don't want to go for this too hard, because if you succeed, you get a good 2 or 3 years, and then it's hard to escape that for the rest of your life. And you got to figure out how to land that plane, and landing that plane is harder than getting up in the air.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the internet, dude. Like, everybody's trying to tear you down. Like, sorry, dude. Like, that's what it is. This is the internet is for trolling and hating. Like, that's what it is for. Especially if you're a personality. You know, like if it's like if your brand is like you, like your face, oh yeah, they're trying to get you the hell out of here, dude. The heck?
I had a friend from high school who, by the time he was a year older than me, but by the time I had graduated, so he'd already been a YouTuber for a year. He had almost like 600,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he was into like anime and video games, but it kind of went down like he started doing cosplay and going into like anime shows, and it kind of went down like a weird kind of misogynistic path, and he became one of those guys. And yeah, like I saw a video that was like the rise and fall of so and so, and I'm like, there's a dude who made a YouTube video that got 3 million views about a guy I went to high school with who's already risen and fallen and risen again. Like he's still going at it. He's still doing Twitch streams. He's still got a couple 100,000 subscribers and whatever he's doing. You know, God bless him. But like, to be in the place where I am right now versus like to be in that place where like you're a dwarf star already, man, that's crazy. I just don't know how much work you can do with that. So not a fan of that kind of fast fame, but all that happens all the time. And every 4 years, especially after a presidential cycle, and especially after one party gets creamed, people start to look up and they start to kiss their pundits. A phrase that I'll be using for the rest of my life now, or at least the rest of this administration, because the original term for that and what happened this year, the thought was taken very literally, and that's not what I intended. Also, I don't think that that guy watches Power Report.
Oh God, imagine.
If that were the case, the map behind you would just be Kash Patel's eyes.
Oh my God, imagine. They're like, yeah, and he seems like he really watches some Power Report. His name is Bad Lefty on there. No, joking.
This guy was on his live stream and he literally said to beep your pundits. Oh God. Okay, you know what? That's when we should pull the plug. I am gonna start playing some of the clips from
Let's do it.
Pusha T and Malice. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna start playing the clips from the Power Report episode. So yeah, I'm gonna play these through a little bit as much as I can. Might end around midnight or when I decide to need to use my computer again. But yeah, this first clip is about an hour long anyways, and it's pretty much most of the conversation that Bam and I had. So definitely check out the archives if you want to see the full thing. It was a good episode. Then I speak with Kat for about 40 minutes, and then I'll play the rest out with Bam and Kumars arguing about Iranian politics. But Bam, thank you for joining me on this, version. And also, even though I won't be on camera for this, I will still be in the chat, y'all. So like you can, keep it on, keep it going in the background for sure. I'll be around. But yeah, thanks for joining. Ray says hi. She wants to make it. She wants to make it next week, but of course got busy. That's what she says. But yeah, no. Thank you, Bam, and thank you all. And the power is always within you. All right. And thank you all in the comments as well. Let me just get this queued up here. Part of the reason it takes so long for me to edit videos is like I hate watching myself, and I did so much of editing my videos when I was like working at TYT, or like I would shoot videos with Hassan and then rewatch them, and it's like I just lived this multiple times. Why do I need to rewatch it? So it's those sort of things. But alas, we make it work. Anyway, so here
saying that Hitler
we'll
got
this, and keep it pushing. An article I was reading.
Yeah, no, he gave some sort of speech, and there's some video of it as well.
Yeah.
At some point, I do have smoke for Saudi Arabia, but we can wait.
There's one last thing about let's cut off the Benjamin Netanyahu point, I'll just say that he was mad unpopular in Israel for gutting the courts, and he was mad unpopular in Israel in the days after the October attacks. And I was telling people that doesn't mean Israel's all of a sudden getting like a left-wing bent and they're becoming like pro-Palestinian all of a sudden. Unfortunately, you have groups and people that are there, but no, they're mad that he could possibly let an attack like that happen. So
Yeah. He branded himself as the Great Protector. That was his political brand.
Yeah. So by expanding his, reach in Gaza and having plans to, start settlements there, and I think if anything, it's a political Hail Mary for him to get more power. If, all the other reasons you mentioned as well, but also, yes, he is that sick and that cynical to be like, well, maybe, taking the parking lot approach might get me some votes next time. So, yeah. But, bam, Saudi Arabia.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm repeating this because I did say it before, but it just really, I do think that this all started because of the normalization talks that Israel and Saudi Arabia were having. And it was funny because we were going to do an episode. I couldn't be on that week. And I wanted to talk to Dan about the Israel and Saudi Arabia meeting. Like there was a Saudi delegation that went to meet with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And I think it was the Israeli tourism minister or something like that who went to Saudi Arabia. But that's a huge deal. And then, maybe 2 weeks after, then Hamas attacked. And I do think it was because they wanted to do everything they could to stop those peace talks. But we've seen now that Saudi Arabia is like really backing the Palestinian Authority. I think Saudi Arabia is, I don't want to say happy, but they don't mind what's going on. They want Hamas out of Gaza, and they want the Palestinian Authority to take power there. And I don't think Saudi Arabia cares about Palestinian people. But the thing that like bugs me and is like makes me angry is that we know that next year around this time, our gas prices are going to go sky high.
Oh yeah.
Saudi Arabia is going to do everything they can to get Trump back in office. Like they're going to be teaming up with Russia to get those gas prices $7 or something. And like it's like they're gonna be like pushing, doing whatever they can to affect American politics. And they can't do shit when it comes to Israel bombing Palestinians. They have nothing. And this is a powerful country in that region. Like Saudi Arabia holds a lot of weight in that region.
Yes.
To the extent that Israel even wants to normalize relations with them. Saudi Arabia doesn't border Israel. Israel made a peace with Egypt in 82, I think, something like that. Jordan. These are countries that border them. They had fought wars against them. Saudi Arabia is not there. Saudi Arabia is not invading Israel. They're not a threat, but they have so much power. And, and it's like a very like right-wing-ish government. And Netanyahu, I'm sure, wants to be buddies with MBS. And they were working on that. When you see like what's happening in this thousands and thousands of Palestinians getting killed, it's just like, damn, like y'all can't do nothing. Like there's nothing you can do. But when it comes to these elections here, they're going to do something.
I think honestly that stuff too with the Palestinian Authority, like the Palestinian Authority might be the only entity that has less popularity than Hamas with Palestinians because it's viewed as a puppet of the Israeli government. Rightly so, at least controlled opposition.
And there was one point that, not to bring it back to Nick Fuentes, but there's a point you hear repeated a lot among conservatives that like there's a reason that Putin is doing this because Ukraine has some like relation to Russia as well. And like there's that same context where you have Ukrainian politicians who are viewed as puppets of Putin. And so when you have the initial invasion of a couple of those regions, they were like more amicable for that. So it's like a similar dynamic that's going on.
Yeah, you know what I see is what I see happening. I don't know if Israel's going to put settlements back in Gaza. I mean, they took those settlements out in 2006, I think it was. I don't know. We'll see. But I think they're going to do whatever they can to get the Palestinian Authority in power in Gaza. You're going to have Saudi Arabia and Egypt backing that. And then what you're going to have is like I hate to say it like this, but what you're going to have is like terrorism in Gaza. Like the Hamas fighters are going to be doing like guerrilla attacks against like the Palestinian Authority people. It's going to end up like a civil war that we had before in Gaza. It's going to be that again. And it's just going to be hell for the civilians even more.
You know, I agree with your framing there and your projection. I can totally see that playing out exactly that way. The only fly that might be in the ointment is they have completely leveled the place, and there's going to have to be a rebuilding of Gaza, particularly northern Gaza. And you know, I don't know. They are malicious enough to just do this. I do think that they are strategic. Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing government, I think one of their goals is to retake the land. We have to see.
There are tweets. Sorry, I mean to cut it, but like there are tweets of IDF soldiers saying like, "This is our ancestral land. These are our beautiful beaches. These are ours now." So like, I mean, at the very least, like Netanyahu, I don't think he's a religious fundamentalist. I think he's just a fascist. But the religious fundamentalists, sorry.
So he's an atheist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, then there you go. Like, but I do think that he's like, just like Trump is not religious, but his coalition is involved with religious fundamentalists. Those religious fundamentalists are desperate to settle, and they want all of Gaza. They want to go into Lebanon. They want all of the West Bank. I mean, this is an expansionist. It's Zionism. It is not. Yeah,
exactly. And thank you so much. When you put it that all these types of religious nationalisms are acting the same. They're operating the same way, whether it's Hindu nationalism, whether it's Islamic nationalism or Christian nationalism here in the United States, and they have all unified. Right, there's a global coalition of ethno-nationalists and religious nationalists who all agree that they want to change the world order from liberal democracy. So that's where we are.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think like it's much, when you put it in that context, it's easier for people to understand. And when you say there's a global world order, who's Modi siding with here?
Come on.
Modi's cozying up to Netanyahu. I did an interview on the Majority Report with Anthony Lowenstein, who wrote a book called The Palestine Laboratory. I did it back in June, I think. And he basically spoke about how like the Israeli military industrial complex, despite it being a relatively small country, is now one of the 10 largest, it's one of the 10 largest exporters of weapons technology and surveillance technology in the world. That's all been subsidized and built up by the United States. And now it's its own organism. And they do all these backroom deals and sell a bunch of weapons to Modi's government. And what do they have in common? They want to suppress a Muslim minority in their state. And so like, this is the coalition that we're seeing, and frickin' stupid ass Biden is walking right into it. It's amazing. It's not gonna, who's Netanyahu eventually, once Biden doesn't give him the green light or like tries to get him to claw back in some way on all of his genocidal aims, he's gonna turn on that guy like a dime because he knows that Trump is gonna do way better for him. And same thing with MBS. This is why, sucking up to them in like a half-assed way is like, no, be in opposition to these freaks. It's not going to end well.
It's not.
I do feel like, if by chance we did get a Trump presidency, or who knows, maybe even under Biden. And once again, we were talking about this before, but Hamas is like Hamas is allied with Iran, Syria. But Hamas is like the only kind of connection that Iran has to like the Sunni Arab world. Like that's the only connection. if Hamas is like destroyed, so to speak, like I think it really, really primes up an Iran invasion. Like that, like
An Iran invasion of who?
Like a coalition of the willing against Iran.
Oh, an invasion of Iran. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
spearheaded by spearheaded by the United States and Saudi Arabia, I guess. Like, because
I hope
the Arab/Muslim world doesn't really have. I mean, aside from like the Shia people, like doesn't really have much connection to Iran, but people know that Iran supports Hamas. Like they're the ones that support this group and Hezbollah. But without Hamas there, like they're like, okay, well, we don't really need them anymore. Like, let's, and Iran isn't doing themselves any favors by everything that happened with Masa Amini and their crackdowns and those protests last year. I think that was last year. Right. Last year, September, I think.
Time is a flat circle these days.
But yeah, Iran isn't like doing itself any favors. They're not looking good in the world, and it'll be terrible. I hope it doesn't happen. But like everything in that region is like so connected. Like one domino falls, and like it's just easy for the other ones to start falling too.
Yeah.
On that,
Go ahead. No, I'm hopeful that that's not the case. That's really it. Go ahead.
I was like, on that positive note, bring it back here. We're kind of talking about fundamentalism in America and how some of the most like virulent right wingers in this are like, no, but you see, for our Revelations plan, we need the Jews to have Israel. Maybe some of them will be saved, maybe we won't. But like at the end of the day, they're aligned on their aims and their disregard of life because of that fundamentalism. But they're also the ones who are starting to, under that guise, come out in America as being pro-Israel. And I think there's so much of that, there's so much of background that, kind of on the ground here makes these conversations, not more difficult because, again, it's clear what's going on, but it makes it so there's so much more friction when you're trying to have discourse about it on air, when you're talking to people in your own personal lives, because it's tied so closely into interpretations of religion and a lot of fundamentalism and, to be real, a lot of money. And I'm not just talking about like Jewish like groups and organizations like Zionist ones, but I'm also talking about PragerU and all like who's also like, I think Prager's Jewish also, but like you have religious fundamentals like the Koch brothers. You have all these religiously fundamental people who have a lot of money as well. And so that's what they're bankrolling. And because they're bankrolling it, politicians are scared. They're worried about being primaried, like the Nina Turner is a classic example of that. So it's all like really a lot here, especially, right?
But you see what the funny thing is, like MBS as like the fundamentalist, like the most fundamentalist country in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, like he got himself in there too. Like he's part of that crowd, that like right wing.
Money talks.
Yeah, money talks. So like these people aren't really like there's not at the higher levels, they're not true believers, as usually how it goes. The people on the street are true believers, but once you get up there, it's just like, how can we help each other? Because, it's Saudi Arabia. Like Saudi Arabia, I mean, granted, like I spent 10 years in the Muslim community. I went to Hajj, everything. I've seen it all. Saudi Arabia is like the reason for so much, like that so much fundamentalism got exported around the world.
Yeah. No doubt.
But it doesn't matter, and whatever you'll hear about Jewish people or Christians in like those communities, like, I'm not going to repeat it, but he got himself a seat at the table.
It's because Americans particularly Americans. And I think there's a bit of white supremacy tied in it too. This expectation that they can manage Saudi Arabia and that they can get what they need out of it in terms of capitalism, right? They can make the money that they want to make, and they trust the wealth that they're getting out of it more than the risk of empowering the people who struck us on 9/11. And we have a nice little way of turning away and projecting our anger towards Iraq and Afghanistan, right? So Saudi Arabia has for a very long time gotten away with, I mean, look at what they're doing in Yemen. I mean, all things considered, what Saudi Arabia has been allowed to do to Yemen is an evil of the highest order as well. So I don't know, man. Maybe the West is just as terrible as what's that boy Jackson Hinkle? You know?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, look, we are that's the thing though, is like a lot of this, I would say, is a creation of this fundamental anxiety in the West of a multipolar world.
Mm-hmm.
The United States is losing influence. We're still the world superpower militarily, and like culturally, I think we're also fairly centric, but like there are many different kind of economic avenues that different countries are going down in terms of like making backdoor deals, relationships without kind of the okay of the United States. And so we are a bloated, dying superpower. And one way, I thought that the early parts of the Biden administration were a bit stabilizing on that front. But one way to accelerate that is to completely isolate yourself from the rest of the world in the way that we did in Iraq by backing a completely illegal and unjustifiable war of brutality, and in this case, a genocide by Israel.
No, I'm just like,
we got a second win, Israel 2.0, or
oh God, I can't believe how some people like see it in certain situations and don't in others. And like I've had this, I'm trying not to make this about me, right? But I've had this thing in other situations where I was looking at Ukraine, and I think that's the justifiable reason to do that. But there are so many like other atrocities that are going on, flare-ups that happen here or there, that are less advantageous for Americans to pay attention to. There's a lot of picking and choosing that's going on. But from a lot of liberals, especially a lot of liberal people, like I've learned a lot about, I guess, like myself and my standards, and a lot about that gap in other people's standards and where their morals take a long walk off a short pier, essentially. This has been the illuminating aspect of that has been where people are willing to cut off their morals. And I kind of don't know how to. I've been like paying attention to politics for like maybe 15, 16 years. I've been talking about it like a lot, but I don't know how to argue with that when you have that big of a gap, like that big of a difference.
It is interesting to see where people cut off their morality. I suggest an easy way to find it is to ask yourself the question, well, what are you willing to give up your morality for, right? I think if people just pause and reflect, maybe we all have that line. I'm hoping that we don't, though, because look at what you're capable of doing when you cross that line. When you cross that line, you're able to look at us in the face and say that we are wrong for calling for a ceasefire. They called Angie Nixon, I think they called her like a devil, because she called for a ceasefire. And so when you get to the point where you can ignore morality for whatever reason, it really turns you into a person who can't see straight. Like they're seeing upside down. But I think that's also a part of the strategy. There's some people who are not victims here, and they're strategically turning things upside down to use those type of attacks to keep us from getting an actual ceasefire. You know what I mean? It's so frustrating.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. All right, here's where I'll get a little spicy. I am so sick of these coddled Westerners who are white passing, okay, making this about themselves when every 10 minutes in Gaza a child is dying.
Come on.
I don't really give a shit about like your sensitive kind of
That's right.
attitude, your sensibilities in suburbia. Like, you're fine. You live in a $600,000 house. You live in a suburb of Philadelphia. I'm just picking a random place, but you understand the types of like the, you know, whatever, Amy Schumer or whatever is a high profile example of somebody who has decided that they are the true victim here. You know, it's not the poor people in Gaza. It's not the people who are literally put on a caloric diet by the government that occupies them. They can't drive on certain roads because that's just for Israelis. The Palestinians have to drive on separate roads, and they can't vote in the elections of the place that actually like determines their livelihoods. But you're the victim because you feel uncomfortable, because you don't really necessarily connect with, and you don't fundamentally ask why, the pro-Palestinian movement. And like, that's been the most discouraging thing. And I'm aware that like I'm a white girl, right? But I'm really disappointed in other white people I know in my personal life. And like white members of Congress, all of the people that in the House that have signed on to the ceasefire are POC. And it's like, why is that? Why can't we have a freaking white person actually sympathize with the Palestinian people? And in part, I just really do think that it's because like it's so much easier to identify those systems of oppression when it's happened to you, but it's deeply depressing that like, you know, people that posted black squares are also posting freaking I stand with Israel. How does that connect? How does that connect? It doesn't connect at all. It's actually an opposition. Same thing with the Ukrainian flag and I stand with Israel. You're completely like, you have no like intellectual basis or in fundamental belief system behind this. It's just reacting to, you know, where the power is. It's frustrating.
They're starting. Well, I want to say that me and Dan probably laughed when you said $600,000 because we're in Southern California and that's nothing. Like,
yeah, no, I got you.
You're living in somebody's like gang territory, $600,000. But no, like a lot of people just like started this situation at Hamas's attack, and obviously none of us need to like say this. Like we're against civilians dying. Like nobody's like celebrating Hamas's attack. You know, it's sad to see those Israelis that died or got kidnapped. Like that's sad.
And if you're saying that like people were celebrating it, like, oh, there are people online, like people online like talk about anime porn half the time, all right? Like you can pull people online talking about anything at any given time that's just like ridiculous. That doesn't count. Like there weren't people out in the streets like for this. So yeah.
Yeah. Like show me like a clip of somebody like on their show saying that was great. Like, no, it's not gonna happen. But they're starting this situation at that attack, and it's like, no, dude, like it doesn't start there. You're talking about the people that are occupied. They're fighting against their occupier every day, just like their occupier is fighting them every day and bludgeoning them every day and humiliating them every day. And it's an apartheid every day. Like so many people have stories about like, some 18-year-old Israeli soldier pushed my mom over into the street, or like was roughed up my grandma, or like my uncle that's like in a wheelchair. They're going through all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like
we had a Palestinian who moved to America call into the show 2 days ago who said his best friend was shot in front of him when he was 16 by an IDF soldier.
Yeah, like this is like a common occurrence, especially in Gaza. Like it's especially bad there. So it didn't start with what Hamas did. It started 50, 60, whatever, 100 years. I don't know how many years.
75.
Ago.
Yeah.
Some people. Anyway, it's not about me. I don't support what Hamas did because I don't support any women and children, just combatants. If you're going to fight combatants and leave it there. Period. Number two, that's just my personal opinion. But then two, where was George Bush's strategery? What was the goal here? Did they really believe that this was going to be the tip of the spear of liberate? Except for this, there may be a path forward to liberate Palestine because of what Hamas did, but it's only because of the pain and suffering of the 10,000 Palestinians who have died. Right? Yeah. Is that the path that we want to choose as a strategy for liberation?
But that's the thing, is like, it's not, you know why it's not rational? Is because Hamas is also a religious fundamentalist group. Like, we return to this. Like,
they didn't want to liberate Palestine with that.
Hamas doesn't care about Palestinian citizens anymore than the IDF does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's like that, but that's the reason that Netanyahu, and not Netanyahu, we should say the Israeli government, because it goes back to the 80s, them funding Hamas. Yeah. You know, like, they favored Hamas coming into power. They were much more threatened by Abbas. They were much more threatened by leftist secular groups within the Palestinian people. And they said, there's a quote in a Likud party meeting from 2019 from Netanyahu, as recently as now, you can look it up in Haaretz, saying the empowerment of Hamas is a part of our strategy to keep the West Bank and Gaza separated, to keep them divided amongst themselves. This is like, when you hear the term human shields being used by Netanyahu, who the hell did he steal that from? George W. Bush, who said, well, it's okay for civilians in Iraq to die because Saddam Hussein is using human shields. And they also stole from the United States, or they were kind of doing it in concert in the 80s with the funding of religious fundamentalist groups in the Middle East, like the Mujahideen on the United States' end, in order to achieve our kind of very like myopic and self-involved freakish goals of furthering our own interests. And so like, that is why Hamas is still robust, and it's completely because of the Israeli government. So to pretend like they are the sovereign entity over Gaza is insane, because Israel controls all of their borders, land and sea. They control what comes in, they control what comes out. They control their electricity, their water, their food. You know, Hamas exists because Israel wants it to exist, because whenever there's a spurt of violence, they get an opportunity to clear out more Palestinians and say, hey, well, they sympathize with Hamas.
Mow the lawn.
Yep.
Put the Palestinians on a diet. No, history is not anti-Semitic. Pointing out like the condemn Hamas meme, like that notwithstanding, right? But like pointing out why you even have these tensions and situations there to begin with is important. Pointing out why, wow, every time when you have a place where the median age of a person is below the age of 18, and all of their memories and all of their experiences, nothing but trauma. All of what they've been told about their family are people who have been killed or like seriously injured in the same type of trauma. And somehow that's going to stop terrorism. That's going to make people not be motivated for terrorists. Like when you get, I want to pull up that cartoon really quickly from the Washington Post. It was playing into that exact like human shields dynamic, and he was thankfully, I think I don't know if the Washington Post did anything about it. I'd be honestly surprised they did. But I think the author originally apologized for it ultimately.
Yeah.
This one says, how dare Israel attack civilians, with a really racially tinged caricature.
No.
Like if this were drawn about Benjamin Netanyahu, this would be anti-Semitic. like if it were like drawn like this the other way, like just the way the characterization is like wild, just wild. Washington Post, like, by the way,
you know what? See,
paper of record.
The thing is that they really, boy, have they fallen over into some real sick and evil kind of stuff that is going to be marked for the rest of humanity. Like, they really have allowed themselves.
They're showing their ass like it's OnlyFans. Like,
come on, man. Thank you for summarizing it. This is madness. And it's being accepted by people who otherwise would call it out. They would call out this if it was in any other scenario.
Yeah.
But it's Muslims, it's Arabs. I mean, like we have not dealt with, I thought like maybe we had some understanding of how depraved we were after 9/11 and what No, we haven't grown at all.
No.
We haven't
Ron
grown
DeSantis said
whatsoever.
Islamophobia in quotes on the debate stage last night. I know, like, for Ron DeSantis,
not
the
one
bar's
of them-
in hell, but
Not one of them mentioned any of the nearly 11,000 dead Palestinians, and that's a conservative estimate during their during that debate. I was waiting for it. They had, like, Christie was asked a direct question about the Palestinian boy, the 9-year-old who was killed in the hate crime in Illinois, which is especially relevant because, look, I'm from New Jersey, and there's a sizable Palestinian American population in a community in Patterson. But, putting that, I mean, like, he didn't even directly answer it in that question either. Like, it's like they're just not human and not worthy of recognition.
I think I was about to mention Chris Christie talked about something like, oh, right after 9/11, I'm paraphrasing, but he hugged a Muslim guy a couple times. Like,
after he signed off on warrants to surveil mosques, he was one of the guys most instrumental in his time as U.S. attorney in New Jersey in like literally going after places of worship in the state. That was a big part of his role, being a Bush appointee in New Jersey.
But again, like, it goes back to liberals here, where Bam and I were Bam and I were talking about this on a couple episodes back, or even yesterday. We remember the Muslim ban. Like, we remember how visceral of a moment, and the Trump administration was full of a lot of visceral moments like this, but that was so early on. We were like, okay, we're really stepping the gas and going in the sixth gear that quickly. All right. But you even saw liberal outpouring in airports and an understanding of the, worthiness of the life of Muslim people. Like 5 years later, 6 years later, fuck all of that. It's all gone.
Yeah, no, all of it, to the extent that I mean that coalition that showed up at the airports. I was at one of those rallies in Boston when the Muslim ban came down, and it was just a beautiful sight to see the kind of people that stood up at that moment. That coalition is dead. That coalition is dead is because, like, they're looking at us as if we're anti-Semitic because we're calling for a ceasefire, and we're looking at them like, oh, you're really supporting genocide. And that's pretty much the end of that coalition. And this is so scary. So it makes me take a step back and say, you gotta examine you gotta examine the goal by what actually happened. Like, people stop with Hamas and say that this was Hamas and this was their masterful plan and blah, blah, blah. No. Look at the outcome. The outcome is the destruction of one of the coalitions that is actually keeping America from falling. Okay. The fascists that are coming up in this next election are so against liberal democracy, and they are so committed to installing a theocratic fascist state that it is the most critical moment in history. And where do they strike at? Our ability, like, we don't have the ability to gather as that type of. But you know what's beautiful, though? I could put all that aside. You know what's beautiful? Seeing all the people around the world who are standing up for Palestine. Now that, my friends, that's a coalition.
And it's usually the case. Like I've been to many Palestine rallies. Like, people generally support Palestine, like citizens, around the world. Like, they will stand up for Palestine, and you don't really get very many pro-Israel as a nation, like, rallies in the world. Like, people know that it's an apartheid state. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to the human shield thing. It's just really hypocritical, because it's like I remember the Arab Spring, and, like, in Libya, Sarkozy and Obama are saying that, well, Gaddafi is using civilians as, I mean, like, they're just like, Gaddafi's bombing civilians, and Gaddafi says the rebels are using them as human shields. Like, no, you're not allowed to use that.
Yeah,
like a Marvel movie.
And in Syria, like, they say, Bashar, you're killing civilians. Like, well, the rebels are using them as human shields. You're not allowed to use that. Only we can use that one. Like, literally, like, only we can use that.
Go ahead.
No, it's like, are these terrorist groups barbaric for using human shields? Like, are they barbaric for going after civilians? Like, that's the lying case. Like Hamas is barbaric for going after civilians, which is why we have to kill them, even though we're going to kill civilians as well. And it's just, I mean, let's not even give them that credit. Like I am so, the thing I can't stand is that people generally understand that Netanyahu is a psycho. And even when I speak to Zionists, right? Like they're like, I don't like him mostly because of what he's done to the judiciary, and he's crazy, he's a psycho. But then they can completely segment that from their assessment of the genocide, which they think is, well, they're really going after Hamas. He's being really rational in this way. It's like, no. This that is not really a two congruent thoughts, honestly. And so the point really is just like, you just see, I guess, how tribal and fearful people can get, and how what they can justify atrocities. And like, I'm so moved again by those demonstrators with Jewish Voice for Peace who chant, and I think I'm paraphrasing here, never again, not for anyone, something to that effect. That's what you have to, be consistent on. But unfortunately, we're not. So,
yeah.
I'm moved by seeing even because there's even the stereotype of, oh, these are progressive, reform Jews in the West who are standing behind this. I saw a video of a large group of Orthodox Jews who were in uniform.
Oh, I met them at the pro-Palestine protests. I tried to shake the guy's hand. I went out like this, and he just stood there for 5 seconds and stared at me. I was like, oh, thanks for coming out. And I told Sam Seeger about it later. He was like, oh, that guy's not going to shake your hand. You're a woman. You're not even really a human being. So it's just don't do that again. I'm like, all right, yeah. But kudos to them for standing firm on this, at least.
Yeah.
A sizable Orthodox community that is not for the state of Israel for their own reasons. But yeah.
It's breaking stereotypes. It's good to be able to see that kind of, I'm saying, people standing up. I was kind of, like you said, Emma, you don't think that the Democratic Party, especially Biden, really expected the amount of blowback they would get, the amount of people in the streets. I don't think a lot of places around the world, like in Europe, like in France and Germany and the UK, where they're cracking down on even regular forms of protest, like non-violent forms of protest. The thing I was kind of concerned with, I know, pontificating about the outcome of an election a year from now is a useless exercise. So I'm not trying to get into it here. But yesterday I was like, what can Joe Biden, or what would Joe Biden logically do while still also being alive that will not depress Democratic Party support? Because Bam has a take that we don't need to get into, but that Trump may not be an option at the end of election this time in November. And Trump was a motivator for Democratic voters, much like the issue of abortion.
Negative partisanship.
Yes.
Yeah.
To get people out. If you have someone, I don't love this analogy here, but if you have someone like Nikki Haley who can pass off as semi-reasonable on abortion to the large swath of Americans, and you don't have that much negative partisanship or any other combination that way, is Biden going to do anything that doesn't suppress his own party's vote?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, look, nobody's voting for anything in this country because of Israel-Palestine. That doesn't really register for people in that way.
Except for Arab Americans in Michigan and in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, sizable populations.
There's going to be some people, but there's constantly things going on. I was at a big protest in a couple years ago. It was cracking. We were almost fighting against the counter protesters. But it wasn't the big news, but it was it was up downtown LA. This is something that's always going on, right? I think right now the thing that made it really, really big is that Hamas killed 1,400 people. That's the brain buster for people. It's they never saw a situation where Hamas did something to Israel, and I don't think people know how to what
And people think of Israel as similar to us. Like it's like Western and wealthy, and it looks like it could be a city in, someplace in America.
That's why the Ukraine flags went up, but the South Sudan flags didn't.
Yeah.
No, it's like, if I don't know, it's hard to even compare here in like modern times. Like, who could it be that attacked? I mean, obviously we have like 9/11, but like these are like people coming from another place, but like people here like killing Americans, like you can't even like fathom that really. But I just feel like when Hamas did that, like, people wanted to have some sympathy for those Israeli people that got murdered and kidnapped, and I think you should, because I do. But then once Israel goes on like this genocidal war path, it's like, yeah, like you gotta walk and chew gum now. Like you gotta be able to say both are bad, and that's just the part where people are struggling, I guess. Like, I still want to focus on that. It's like, no, dude, like both are bad. Like, they're killing civilians too. All Israel does is kill civilians.
Yeah, one's the one we fund. Like, that's the thing that is annoying me about the debate. Like, you're right? But the reason people are in the streets for to stop the funding to going to Israel is because, like, generally the rule of protest is that you protest what your government does. And that's like, people are like, oh, no one cares about the Israeli debt. Like, no, you mourn them, but you fight like hell for the living, and the living are being killed with our tax dollars. That's the difference. And man, does it make me mad. Yeah.
It's maddening. It is. I've had to step away from my show for a few days because it should bother us on this level, right? I'm still deprogramming myself from being extremely fastidious with my words, because if I knew how to do anything, I knew how not to get called anti-Semitic. Oh, they couldn't catch me. No. But now they decided to start genociding. Well, then now you caught me red-handed because I can't do anything but call it what it is. It's a genocide. So, it's whatever now.
To that point.
Yeah, I can't even it's like silly to me, like the things that are being called anti-Semitic. Like, I'm like, come on, dude. Like, don't water it down. Like, this is a serious thing. Like, anti-Semitism is like a serious thing that needs to be fought against by everybody. But to just say like, oh, river to the sea is like, come on, dude. Like, really? Like, don't water it down.
Yeah. I think like, the Israeli government wants that. And that's like what people don't understand.
Who's the guy in the UK? Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah. Like him.
King. But, people are like, I have one friend who I've been having a disagreement with about this. And like, I remember some months ago, like, we're normally in lockstep, but Corbyn came up and my friend was like, oh, anti-Semitic, like, for sure. I was like, what's the example? Like, they can't come up with it. It's just like, it's general understanding. It's manufacturing consent.
Yes, it is.
But all right, guys, I got to dip. I am so tired. I did 3 shows today. This is my 3rd show, but I love my friend Dan. Love you guys. Really appreciate you all. Thanks so much, and I will talk to you all soon. Appreciate you all.
Great
Thanks for coming on, Emma. Take care.
Take care.
Yeah, great seeing you guys. Bye.
Right. Then there were 3.
Don't tell the cops. No. There's so much in that. Like, Ben, to that question from earlier, like, I guess there was that disagreement Bam and Emma had over, will people be voting on this next year? On the one hand, it's foreign policy. On the other hand, like, it's tax dollars. On the other hand, this is America, and long term, we don't remember atrocity happening. People here or abroad. I used to make a big deal about Biden promising the George Floyd Accountability and Policing Act or whatever. And then in July of 2021, he was like, oh, well, we tried sort of, but whatever.
Man, let me say, excuse me. Emma mentioned tired, and then now all of a sudden I'm yawning. Listen, I'm only going to, there's two parts to that answer, right? The average American knows Benjamin Netanyahu would have killed every Palestinian by next year. And as long as we have about 3 months, America will forget what happened, because that's what Americans do. Now, when it comes to folks who have voices and platforms like me and everybody else, oh, you know, oh man, like we're having to do some soul searching here. Because how can you say, like, it's one thing for me to say you cannot let Donald Trump get into power, but it's another thing to say you cannot let Donald Trump get into power because he's a fascist. And then you turn around and look at what Joe Biden has let the fascists in Israel do. The fascist specifically. I like to call out Benjamin Netanyahu specifically, because this uniquely benefits him specifically. Right. I don't just do that to cover my ass. I'm smart enough to do that. Right. But I call out Benjamin Netanyahu specifically because he benefits the most from this scenario. He was the one who's under investigation for fraud right now. Right. He's the one who had hundreds of thousands of Israelis march against him in the streets just prior to this. He's the one that funded Hamas. He's the one that helped prop them up and funded. I'm using loosely here. He allowed money that flowed to Hamas to get into Gaza, right? So he is the one who benefits the most from this. Now, the rest of that right-wing government, I include them too, man, because that is a definitive difference between the Jewish people and this ethno-nationalist right-wing extremism of Benjamin Netanyahu's party. And I think those distinctions matter.
I kind of want to reply to somebody in the chat.
No. Kidding, do it.
Derek Hunsaker. I don't really understand this all the way, but he says Israel has human rights because they exist and have industry. How many times has Arafat refused sovereignty? And then he goes on to say Palestine could have agreed to a state multiple times and did not. He dies and Abbas is worse, and Israel leaves and Hamas is elected, and those who were elected have never held another election. And like that's partially correct, but not really, because Arafat didn't refuse sovereignty because he was going to have to give up Jerusalem. And he said, you know, for whatever good or bad you want to say about Yasser Arafat, like at the very least, he didn't like sell out his people when it came to Jerusalem. He was like, it's not my city to give it up. And so I'm not going to give it up. So were they able to have a state? I would say no. Like, I don't think Israel was ever like saying like, we're going to let you have a state. But in so much as they were, it was a state with like no control of this city. Like, I mean, it's not like they have much control anyway. But You're just completely giving up any kind of like rights to this place, which is a holy place for you, for these people, for the Muslims and Christians in this region who are Palestinian. So no, I don't really think that that's like the right characterization of like what Yasser Arafat did.
But y'all some smart brothers around here. Yeah.
It's mostly BAM. It's mostly BAM.
Well, this is like, that's like my region. Like that's
your wheelhouse.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I remember those days, and I remember where I was when Yasser Arafat died. Like that was like a big deal. And it was terrible. They actually had him like, you know, he couldn't leave his compound for like weeks. It's a little bit fuzzy now, but that second intifada, like those times, like Israel was, it was terrible. They were bombing like the same things they're doing now, like using like bombs that can clear out a whole city block because like this one person's over there, we think. And it just like flattens whole buildings.
I done got in trouble, so I'm gonna leave with a little bit more trouble before I go, if that's okay. Yeah. And you gotta allow me to pivot a little. Listen, all love and respect and solidarity and coexistence with my atheist brothers and sisters and agnostics, people who don't believe. I just want to preface it with this, but I'm a believer, and I can't believe that Benjamin Netanyahu and all the rest of the people supporting this actually believe that God is on their side in this. They can't believe that. And so I have to believe and conclude that they don't really believe in God.
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu is an atheist. He said it himself.
Yeah. That makes no. I'm not gonna say that because I love my atheist friend. Almost got me. No. I'm gone. I ain't getting.
Where's this? Before Benjamin Dixon leaves, let's look at the scoreboard. Let's get the scoreboard.
You sly little.
Do I have the memory right? Is it the BPD show?
For Twitter, it's at Benjamin P. Dixon, and the show, the Benjamin Dixon Show. Yeah.
Yes, thebpdshow.com. Does that work?
No, man. Listen, I'll get you guys new links soon. Don't worry about the old links. I get you new.
We
links
out
soon.
here. If you want to find Benjamin Dixon, he out here. All right.
I just look me up. You'll find me somewhere.
Okay. Right. Well, you got to come back because I first found you, and I was really happy to hear a leftist from the South that's also a Christian.
Hey,
I don't consider myself a Christian, but my family is. Wait, you're
some
from
of my
Georgia,
best
right?
friends are Christian.
Wait. Well, I just want to make it clear. Wait, you're from
I dated
Georgia,
a Christian
right?
once.
one
time in college.
You keep setting me up. I was like, oh man, another black Christian leftist commentator on the internet.
Okay, but you're from Georgia.
Most recently, we lived in Atlanta for some years where I did the bulk of the work that most people know me for. But no, I'm from the South, like Mississippi, lived in Georgia, Alabama, and now in
Okay, I don't know if you know of a town in Alabama called Fayette.
Yeah. I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with any of the people.
Okay, well, that's where my family was from in Alabama.
Okay,
4,000 people in a dry county, and I spent many summers there. My grandfather was a Church of Christ preacher. We used to preach in Mississippi. We'd have to go to Mississippi on Sundays, doing fellowship, all that. So like, and I think it's important for people to like understand the difference between like people being conservative and being like right wing. Because my grandparents were conservative, very. They didn't believe in music, but they believed in people's civil rights.
That's right.
And they were at the March on Washington with my dad and all that. So like I think it's like I think it's really important that we have people like you in our movement.
Appreciate it, man. Listen, it fits really well. Like my faith is liberation, and the predominant the left is predominantly about liberation, but we got some sketchy fellows out there who cross the Rubicon.
Dan.
Dan's a good man. I'm sorry, I didn't listen. I'm hoping I'm not misgendering, but I just assume
yes, we're good.
The pronouns. Okay. I try to be mindful of that, but I've been doing it all night, and every time I do it, I'm like, I did not verify. But no, we gotta have.
Fair.
Yeah, we gotta have people of faith who are also people of good faith,
Exactly.
right? And that's and good faith requires coexistence, or else we ain't gonna have nowhere to practice my faith because we're gonna destroy the world. That's where we are right now. So
True.
I gotta come back. Definitely. Let me know when I can do it again. All right,
Please.
brothers.
Ben Dixon, thank you so much for joining. Take care.
All right, I'm out too.
Damn. Be
Real.
We'll think that way.
I mean, I admire.
Still surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I admire. I think, through covering media and doing all the things that you do, you've sort of like, like I have when other people talk to me about these, like core and sort of like shell, right? Like
Yes.
able to handle these things. But yeah, to do that, working at like a place like Media Matters, or like covering Tucker Carlson, or a lot of the things that you do and a couple other folks who've been on the show do.
Sorry, my cat just found the paper bag next to my desk and has decided this is what she wants to do. Here,
Yeah, no, it's all good. This is Team Cat and also Team Cat stream. I think like it's really difficult, and I really appreciate folks, even Jewish allies, who are anyone who has an identity who is very directly related to what's going on. I really appreciate how they're processing it and how they choose to kind of come to the situation.
I mean, like, I just want to be very clear, and I've said this even way before October 7th, that like Jewish allies are the most crucial, have consistently been the most crucial in the fight for Palestinian liberation. And they've showed that over the last year. And I can't express my thanks enough.
Kind of follow up, like after October 7th, yeah, we're speaking a year since all of the events happened. We've described them, the folks who described them, I'm not going to describe them, but like we're a year out from October 7th. Has anything about your worldview evolved? I know as a Palestinian American that your views on this have kind of been set for a while, and like the realities of the situation are a continuation of a long set of history that, frankly, at least to me, I had decided my calculus on this a long time ago after seeing documentaries and films and learning about what was going on in Gaza. But yeah, I just want to hear from you. Has this past year changed anything about the way that you view journalism or morality or politics or even other people's, and how you kind of calculate that as you do your work? I'm really curious about that question.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to create a new sensor for different dog whistles, which is something I already do, studying the right and reporting on the right. But like a whole new set of dog whistles emerged over the last year. And it doesn't just apply to how people talk to me or to other people online, but also institutions. I've followed how the US addresses Israel and Palestine for, my whole life, but it's been so egregious. The fact that Ronald Reagan was more liberal on this issue than Joe Biden. So I confirmed a lot of things that I already knew, but it also showed me just how set an entire government is willing to be, and an entire movement, like a fascist movement, is willing to be, if it means getting more domination. For the US, it means keeping influence in the Middle East. And I don't know, it's hard to say it's changed, but it's been so much more obvious. I feel like in the past, media organizations, like even the New York Times, would at least be more subtle about this stuff. But, a report just came out in Al Jazeera talking about different Arabs and Arabic speakers and Palestinians in newsrooms, like producers and stuff, trying to stop misinformation from getting out. Remember that calendar? It was just a calendar in a hospital, but they were saying it was like a Hamas to-do list. And
it was a really badly done to-do list, by the way. Like,
very badly done. I mean, you just have a bunch of names on there and the days of the week.
You just
what
read it. Like, I don't read it, but the people who have translated it for me are just like, dude, what are we doing here?
What are we doing? And so like a Palestinian producer went up, I think this was before CNN reported on it, and was like, hey, this is not what you think it is. Don't post this. Don't publish this. And they ignored them. And so I've lost, I criticize media for a living, but I have lost so much respect for some major institutions that I thought, even with problematic narratives and op-eds and stuff like that, they still had some type of moral backbone, at least in their reporting. And even if it is just the leadership, the editorial leadership, they've shown that's not the case.
Yeah, I feel that a lot. And I felt that, the whole reason Power Report exists is that, like, a lot of media institutions, even on the left, like even very far left, will frame things from a very colonialist sort of like perspective, and a very like, well, obviously we're supposed to have an influence in the Middle East. Like, obviously we have to have Israel as like a state. Like, of course, like that's how it's like, what other country has it? Again,
there are
like,
2 continents between North America and there.
Yes, literally. As I have a globe right here. I can.
Wow, can you prove it? That's crazy.
This is like right here. We got on
continents.
this, like over on the yeah. No, exactly. Like, I think that it intersects, like, not to, of course, downplay or minimize the situation, but I think that the systems and the ways that you're describing, like, and I love that you're describing this, that the media kind of goes down in order to ascribe away, or stenographer away the American imperial state and how it has proxies such as Israel. I think that's often kind of like written away, and a lot of the work that you and others are doing are like trying to kind of get at that and poke at that. And yeah, like you're saying, the response is very much like condom hummus. Like, it's very
exactly.
It's been reduced down to this level, which,
and in some cases just making shit up. I mean, for anyone watching this, the New York Times Screams Without Words article, which has been debunked at pretty much every single level, including the fact that the main reporter on it wasn't qualified at all and just made up shit when her sources wouldn't provide it, and trusted far-right sources that also admit those were made up. They've essentially manufactured consent for the slaughter of civilians. And subscribing to the New York Times and even their games, like the New York Times games, playing Wordle and all that stuff, that gives money to them. So just remember that. Cancel your subscription if that sits wrong with you.
A New York Times subscription is morally the same as like Chevron to me. Like, it's the same sort of stuff. And exactly,
I had someone ask for they wanted to interview me for something, and I was like, as soon as y'all, apologize for that article and admit that it was incorrect, that multiple places have debunked, absolutely not.
No, the New York Times, like, people should realize, and I think our audience knows this, but like, there are people I disagree with strongly and vehemently who, maybe you do some research, maybe I used to work for them, who have been aggressively slandered by the New York Times. I'll just say this example right now. Cenk Uygur, I used to work at the Young Turks. He was running for congressperson or whatever, and a New York Times article said that he agreed with David Duke, the leader of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, one of my least favorite fraternities, Kappa Kappa Kappa. And it was saying that like Cenk Uygur agreed with him. And listen, Cenk Uygur has had some like regressive problematic opinions, has had and has like let's not just like, you know, put that on the table. But in that interview, I saw that interview even before I worked for TYT. The point in question was like, oh, of course you agree with that. I'm sure, like, it's a very jank way, like it's a very common way of people expressing sarcasm. And
Right.
like there's no human person, especially a journalist, who cannot see that clip and not
Right.
go, hey, dude, that's sarcasm. Cenk Uygur does not agree with the Ku Klux Klan. Like, let's
Right.
just play. And like, you know, I think people see, like, this is just something I saw, but I think people, regular people every day, see this in little examples all the time where they're like, oh, I cannot necessarily trust the New York Times at the paper of record, quote unquote. I cannot necessarily trust them at their word.
And it's a shame because they have some incredible journalists there.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
That's one
And
of the
incredible
things,
journalists have left because
and
of
incredible
these
journalists have
decisions.
left
Yes.
because of it. And that's one of the things with like these, you know, big papers is they, you know, push a lot of shitty op-eds and do stuff like this. But, you know, when it really comes down to it, they can do some really great reporting, some groundbreaking stuff. And yet the New York Times especially has shown that at one of the most consequential, maybe the most consequential story of the year, they're not willing to do that.
Right. So yeah, I think kind of what you're saying, like you're very disappointed from the
Very.
yeah, like journalistic world, especially in the western part of America, where I mean, you know, the western part of the world, including America, where we seem to, you know, selectively decide what our morals and values are.
Yeah.
Speaking of selectively deciding morals and values, let's shift to politics for a little bit.
Ooh, lighter.
Yeah, exactly. Literally in the exact same framework. So I think on the left, again, as vast as it is, the concept of what Kamala Harris's strategy is, and, you know, vis-a-vis what she would do if she were to be, inshallah, elected in 2024, I believe that of the two literally feasible choices, I love the third-party candidates, but thanks for playing. It's October. Please stop. Of the two feasible candidates, I see a presidential candidate as an opposition sort of figure, and I personally, and a lot of the communities that I'm a part of, would prefer to have Kamala Harris as an opposition figure compared to Donald Trump. You don't have to agree with that. You don't have to disagree with that. It's all good. But I just want to ask, what are your thoughts on Kamala Harris's approach? You know,
Yeah.
a lot of times she's ascribed to be a continuation of Biden's policies. I'm personally someone who believes that the vice president don't do shit, especially when it involves like foreign policy. That being said, I think, you know, I don't necessarily agree with the perception that just because Joe Biden is currently president and Kamala Harris is currently vice president and also running to be president, that she has to necessarily cleanly ascribe to Joe Biden's political positions on any issue, especially on foreign policy and especially on continuing, as you said, to fund, as American taxpayers with taxpayer money, continuing genocide in Gaza, and now it's expanding to Lebanon, the West Bank. We're not getting serious attacks in Yemen, but Israel is actively engaged in a conflict with the Houthis, and so who are, whatever opinion you have of them, very popular within Yemen. And so yeah, I'm kind of thinking, like, do you think that Kamala Harris, as someone who, you know, I'm sure you're on the left, I'm sure you want the best position for the left to be, you know, for the next 4 years, how do you feel about Kamala Harris's choice to like pivot to, let's play it safe, let's play electoral, let's keep it very demure, and let's, you know, not talk about the human rights of Palestinians and a lot of folks in the Middle East?
So I think there are a few parts of this. I think electorally, it's a bad strategy. She's currently talking with Arab and Muslim leaders in Michigan, especially because I think the Democrats have realized, hey, why would we leave this up to chance? I have an entire document of statistics like these. For example, in Pennsylvania, I believe the number is 67 or 57, either way, more than a majority of undecided Democratic voters in Pennsylvania would be more likely to support Kamala Harris if she supported an arms embargo. And it's not that the other percentage would be less likely. Only 7% would be less likely. This is the same in Georgia, Arizona, plenty of swing states. And in states like Wisconsin, there were more votes that weren't for Joe Biden in the Democratic primary than there were for the difference between Biden and Trump in 2020. So I think electorally, this is a bad strategy. I think it's old. I think it's tired. It's playing into, 2008 shit, and we are well past 2008. I want to say I'm not here to preach or to tell you who to vote for. I will say Joe Biden is uniquely aggressive on this issue. He's publicly called himself a Zionist. He said some really racist shit about Arabs over the last year. Kamala Harris, in contrast, in this administration before she was running, was pretty much the only person in Biden's administration, like in the executive branch, that mentioned Palestinian human rights, that frequently brought up aid in specific ways. I remember in one interview where she talked about sanitary products for women in Gaza and the lack of access, which is something that I don't think I heard from anyone else in the executive branch. So I was really surprised that she's taken this tact. She's been willing to listen more than Biden, but isn't acting on it, or at least not acting on it publicly. When someone came up to her at the rally and interrupted her and she said, I want to hear what you have to say. I'm speaking right now. It was very middle of the road what you could go with that, but it's a lot different from Biden, who would probably roll his eyes. There's a part of me that's hoping that this is like a Jimmy Carter move, like acting really aggressive on this. She keeps mentioning, our lethal military and stuff. It seems like such a tone shift from the first person in the Biden administration to even say the word ceasefire. I'm not pretending she's some messiah for Palestinian rights, but it seems like such a tone shift that it must be some type of specific strategy. I don't know if that strategy is to continue that in office to consolidate more power, or if it's to use that to get in power so that way she can wield it. I'm hoping it's the latter, but I don't know. And I think it's cowardly for the Democratic Party, not from a human rights perspective. Like, let's put that aside. Like, no matter your thoughts on this. No, but seriously, no matter your thoughts on this, if you want a Democrat to win, this is a bad strategy. Just like Joe Biden being the candidate was a bad strategy. I had so many people, a lot of the same ones that called me slurs and stuff over the last year, who attacked me so much when I said Biden should step down after the debate. And now they all have Kamala Harris in their Twitter header. It's listen to us for one goddamn time. Don't have us push you to the, or not even push you. Don't walk to the edge of the cliff and then blame us for falling off. You need to listen to your voters, not only because you could win even without Michigan. You could. But in that case, you've not only disregarded an entire community of Muslims and Arabs, but Donald Trump is going to challenge these election results if Kamala Harris wins by any margin. Why would we let that margin be even thinner than it has to be? It makes no sense.
Right. Like I've long as a pundit sort of separated like reality versus what Democratic strategists, the people who work for the party actually.
But she's gotten rid of some of those, and you can tell. But I don't know why she's listening to the others, because this is obviously an unpopular issue. You can do a middle. You don't have to say like Palestinian liberation. You don't even have to do that. But to say, Israelis, for the most part, he's gotten a bump in popularity since bombing Lebanon. But for the most part, Netanyahu has been a massively unpopular figure across the world, including in his country for the last year because he is using this war as an excuse to keep himself in power. And so I don't understand why you wouldn't frame it as we're here to support Israel and we want to support the people of Israel. And that's why we want to provide support, but we need Netanyahu out of there.
Listen, I don't absolve.
Someone hire me.
Please
I'll
do.
win you the presidency.
I'm firmly of the belief that if the Democratic Party just hired leftist pundits, that they would sweep the elections like in Ronald Reagan 1980 style. Like it would rock. It would be so clean. But yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. I think she's showing willingness to engage on this topic. We've moved so far to the right from anything since the Nakba. Like it's insane how far we've moved to the right on this topic. And she's bringing it back a little bit. I'm not sure if you saw her 60 Minutes interview, but she avoided from, she was asked, do we have like any influence over Netanyahu? We're giving all of this. And she framed it as we're trying to protect the Israeli people. And then he asked, well, what about Netanyahu? And she said, I think the better question is to ask about the Israeli people. So it's clear she doesn't support Netanyahu, but this could bump her up in the polls. She's going to be framed as an anti-Semite no matter what she does by the far right, which is really funny considering they're the most
they're anti-Semites.
They're anti-Semites. They want this to happen so they can get fucking revelations to happen. So why not follow through with the idea of democracy? Why not support what the Israeli people want? And why not support what your people want? Your citizens, your voters, your taxpayers.
Yeah, I see I see like a political, to me, my analysis, which I've gotten into some arguments with some of my close friends on the left, but it's all good. This is all just like prognosticating. It's not like real arguments, right? But I just don't think Kamala Harris ever set out to be the kind of leftist that she was forced to kind of play as when she was running in the primary in 2020 to compete against Bernie Sanders, who was the hot rod. Like, I think she's a politician, like a capital P trademark politician, in the sense that she will lick her finger and wave it in the air and figure out where the wind is blowing and make sure that she is positioned in whatever way the wind is blowing. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I just think that,
necessarily even that she doesn't even I think she has beliefs, and I do think that those are on the more progressive side, but I'm not sure if she will act on those if she is being told not to. Because the wind is clearly flowing to the progressive side, even if we're defining progressive as like not dropping bombs and getting hostages home.
Jesus Christ.
But like she does have, when she was in the Senate, she has a fairly progressive voting record, especially compared to, at least in America. I
will say as a Californian though.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Greasy Gavin. Like I get a lot of shit because I've been criticized as a Gavin booster because I believe he's a talented politician. That being said, I've lived under the Gavin Newsom regime, and I'm like, y'all need to know something. Like, my photo with Kamala Harris is at the California Democratic Party. Y'all need to know something about California Democrats. Y'all need to know something about blue state Democrats.
There's a lot less risk to vote progressively in the Senate than to be in any type of to be like AG or to be governor.
Not only is there a lot less risk as, a California Democrat voting in the Senate or being the governor or whatever, but there's also a secret thing of like, yeah, you're the California Democrat. This state is run by Democrats. It's almost always going to be. So that means you're a Republican. That means that by definition, you're going to have to, abide by business interests. That means you're going to have to abide by military interests. That means you're going to have to abide by, I think this in a lot of ways. I've thought really hard about factoring her husband, or now husband's, very on the record Zionist views into her political calculus. I'm not necessarily on the side that I think that's fair to assume that like his views are her views. That being said, I've been very hesitant to be like, I think Kamala Harris is going to be the savior. I've just kept Kamala Harris in the same calculus as I did Joe Biden, that like we're
I
gonna
would
be
disagree
fighting.
with that.
Go ahead.
Like
all I want to say is that, like, we're gonna be fighting all these fuckers. I'd rather be fighting Kamala Harris. So I think like my calculus is that I don't know, and I'm not willing to like state to whatever audience that I have that I know. But please go ahead.
There was when it was Trump versus Biden, and Biden just kept doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on all of this. On this issue specifically, and I mean, Biden didn't deliver on, like, in the name of bipartisanship, we don't have a federal law protecting abortion. In the name of bipartisanship, we don't have, you know, federal voting rights regulations. Like, he left a lot to be desired, and showed that he wasn't willing to apply pressure when need be. But on this issue, when it was Biden versus Trump, I was like, oh, cool. So I decide between a guy who uses my ethnicity as a slur, or a guy who said we have an ancient hatred of Jews. He did say Hamas has an ancient hatred of Jews, but Hamas is not ancient. So what race are they? What ethnicity are they? And so, but now my choice is between a guy who uses my ethnicity as a slur and a woman who is spreading a lot of misinformation, but also has at least acknowledged the need for aid and has said that Palestinians don't just deserve, you know, the right to self-determination, which is what every politician says. It's very vague. But she did say that, you know, we deserve safety, that like Gazans deserve safety, and that was new. So like I said, she's not some messiah for Palestinian rights. She's not some messiah for, you know, progressives, but it is an improvement. We're somewhere different than I thought we would be in June. And I am now considering that maybe I don't have to leave the country because the most likely AG pick has said he would throw me in a gulag. So that's cool. I like that.
You're right. Like I think I align.
Mike Davis, by the way.
Right. I think I align very closely with you in that, like, I view voting as one form of politics, not the only form of politics. And I also view voting, especially at the executive level, at the presidential level, as harm reduction versus like what I really want with my heart. Cornel West was going to be on this episode. Apparently his people are too busy. I can't imagine how, but you know, like there's a similar thing of like, you know, the intent is right, but the power is not going to be there, right? And so I think like what you're getting at is really good, and I fully agree with that. Like, purely speaking on the issue of Palestinian, I don't know if I can even say rights or sovereignty at this point, because I don't necessarily believe Kamala Harris ever used those terms, but I'm just like, Palestinian life, right? Like, you know, like, let's stop sending bombs that like have Northrop Grumman and Raytheon logos or whatever, like, and
stop
USA
signing
flags.
them.
Yeah, let's tap the brakes on that, right? Like, Kamala Harris, I definitely feel like she's more of that kind of person in a similar way that Barack Obama was than Joe Biden, because again, like you mentioned this earlier, it's the only reason I mentioned it, but like, as a Black person, like, once you kind of understand oppression and the struggle for liberation, you can't unsee it, and you start to see it. Like, I mean, again, a lot of Black people don't, and I have a lot of arguments. I just got
and a lot of Arab people.
Yeah, I just got my haircut. Or we was in the barbershop about this. Like, a lot of people don't understand that Black liberation is human liberation, and then like that's a struggle everyone has to fight for at all times.
It's class liberation. I mean, Mark Lamont Hill came and spoke at a convention this summer that was for a Palestinian organization that I did a panel at, or a Q&A at. And, you know, he was like, we in our community need to, like, this is a collective thing. And he said, like, the Black community needs to get, like, focus on eradicating anti-Arab racism, but also the Arab community needs to acknowledge and focus on getting rid of its anti-Black racism, because that is very extant. And like, every young person in the room was like, yes,
the Arab community needs to get rid of its anti-Palestinian racism. Like, girl,
yes. It's
Bam's going to be on other pre-recorded parts of this episode, but he is a former Muslim who experienced a lot of anti-Palestinian racism, and he's like 10 toes down on the fact that like this entire conflict would be totally different if, you know, the surrounding quote unquote Arab states actually gave a shit about Palestinians, but they don't. And so they'll do the song and dance with
it's
Israel.
A lot
like,
more profitable
okay.
to be able to do U.S. organized trade partnerships and focus on all of that than to, because essentially if you're going with Israel, or fighting against Israel, you're fighting against the United States. And it's, yeah, absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. I think it's a dual issue. And there's also an issue in like the Palestinian community that I wouldn't necessarily say needs to be villainized. I'm not even sure if I'd call it an issue, but a lot of Palestinian immigrants, the vast majority of Palestinians are part of the diaspora because of the Nakba. They were forced from their homes. My grandparents were victims of the Nakba. My dad was born in Kuwait, and then you couldn't really get citizenship there at that time unless you were had ties to the royal family. So he was in like a refugee camp, essentially, like a quarantine camp, got scarlet fever there when he was like 5, lived in Lebanon, but he was stateless and he's never been. And I feel like a lot of Palestinian immigrants, they either go focus on like keeping the culture, like really appreciate the culture, or they're like, I had to mourn this thing that I never had or will never have again. I don't want to force that on my children. So as like a kid, he was focused really on like assimilation. And that's a very common thing in Palestinian American communities and like especially like Palestinian Western communities. And so that's another thing of just like this almost effort to make the community invisible by its own hands. I don't think that needs to be villainized or even considered like any root issue, but it's a consequence of genocide. Genocide is not just murder. This is what I studied in college. I studied security policy and I focused all of it on like war crimes and genocide. Genocide is not just murder. It is like ethnic cleansing and genocide involve removing people to make an area ethnically pure or pure from a specific group. It involves removing children from groups. It involves denigrating their living conditions while keeping them in a specific spot. This has been going on for a long time. It did not start on October 7th.
Very well put. And I'm sorry, like every fact that you're like talking about is just like personally devastating again as someone who's not directly involved, you know, even identity, but you know, like I don't think you need to be involved directly by identity to also feel the humanity of the situation. And that's kind of why, you know, a year out from the events of October 7th and how that has been discussed in the media and, you know, in politics and in the military and etc., like that's why we're having this conversation.
And it's I was going to say, it's been really cool to see Palestinian culture get like a renewal too. I mean, there are things that I have been learning because I've been trying to explore my own like my mom, who's white, she made a real effort, especially like through food, to try to connect my brother and I to like our Arab roots. And but like it was post 9/11 Texas. You don't really like go hard on any of this, but like in our own home, like she was really big on that. But as I've grown older, I've been making an effort to really try to connect with my Palestinian heritage. I've had more honest conversations with my dad, which have been great. I've talked with my family. I've met cousins online because every Arab family has like a million cousins. So I've had people reach out and be like,
same with Black families too. And
so cool.
I'm Black and Latino and Asian. And so every
you got everything.
Diaspora. No, but like
you have everything except Palestinian.
Yeah. I'm progressive except Palestine when it comes to my race. No, but I just mean to say that like in all of those other cultures that I'm so honored and lucky enough to like share heritage with, we got big ass families.
Yeah, big ass families.
We're constantly learning about that history, and so I definitely relate. Please.
And it's like at that conference I went to, there was this woman who was just like basically a carbon copy of my grandmother. She was like 4'11", and she was like, Abughazaleh, I knew an Abughazaleh, and like told me about all of these people that she grew up with from my family that I will never meet, that in some cases were killed by Israel. But also seeing this culture permeate the mainstream. I went to the George Washington University encampment. That's my alma mater, and I was living in DC at the time. G-Dub. No one cares. Whenever you meet someone from GW, they're like, I have zero school spirit. Thank you. But it was so cool seeing
Imagine
people...
going to Cal Berkeley.
I don't even know what that means because I am so removed from the West Coast. Is that a bit? Is that a bit?
I mean,
is this a bit I should know?
No. I will just say that like Cal Berkeley is the school I went to. It's on University of California. It's the University of California. It's a system, but Berkeley was the first, and I went there. I'm proud of it. We're also like the hardest. Literally, Ronald Reagan made his presidential example out of.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for the free speech protests and like saying like, "Hey, yo, I'm gonna literally send California's National Guard with tanks to harass these college students for protesting on something that, like, you know, again, I'm gonna try to like not value judge, but I think Palestinian liberation is also very important, and also what they're protesting, the Vietnam War, and also those things like are very important, right? And Republicans the Republicans have a tried and true like not just agenda, but also a history of attacking these sort of things.
But these college encampments also, they weren't just protesting an issue; they were telling their colleges they had clear demands, like do not spend money or invest in things that help an apartheid regime. Like it was, people pretend these were all disorganized and just crazy kids, but they had very clear demands. But the GW encampment was it was the most beautiful protest experience I've ever been to. I saw people of all ages and races and genders and wearing keffiyehs. It was so cool. I saw, people sharing different foods. There was a group of Muslim students and there were, right-wing media there. And all of these students and professors and fellow protesters joined hands in a circle. So that way, they couldn't get Breitbart to film them. It was a very beautiful experience. And, people were passing out sunscreen, water, food. Like everyone was there for each other. There were even some Zionist counter protesters who came and took some of the food. And we were just like, all right, if you need it, go for it. And it was a very beautiful experience. And so, that's just, I just want to note that.
No, I think it's important to note because
also buy a keffiyeh. They're super comfortable. Everyone should have one.
I mean, you're rocking it and it's great. It makes me want to buy one.
You should. You can have one even if you're not Palestinian or Arab. They're basically a giant scarf. You can use them. They're great.
I feel real weird about it because like as a Black person, I felt some type of way when like non-Black people would wear like, I'm not wearing it right now, but like I have a lot of like African clothing like inspired by, the stereotype is Nancy Pelosi doing that kneel with the kente cloth. So like, I don't want to be that guy.
Oh, hold on. I'll do an old grandmother impression because this is the exception in terms of like don't culturally appropriate stuff for your own gain. But Habibi, it's comfortable. Do you want mine? You want mine? I can go change. You want this? You can have it. You want mine?
Oh my gosh. That's I literally you just being here is an honor, but even that expression is an honor. Because I just kind of associate that with my own grandmother, and it's a similar sort of like comment. Like, take mine, I'll get another one. It's all good.
Take mine. You cannot leave my house without food and a gift.
Spontaneously, sorry to put you on the spot, but do you know any places where folks, even myself, could maybe get a keffiyeh in a way that also is benefiting, like that money, that those dollars are also benefiting the Palestinian cause?
Yes. So keffiyeh.org, and this way it's spelled Kufiyya, is a Palestinian keffiyeh company that's made by Palestinians. They sell out a lot, but they restock frequently. And you can also, there's like a Palestinian museum in DC that sells them. There are lots of other outlets that sell these keffiyehs. So if you just go on
Kufiyya.
Kufiyya.
There you go. I'm just gonna make a little Kufiyya. Yes. IYA. Why is that so difficult for my I was just gonna do Kufiyya.org.
Yes.
Right? Okay, I was just gonna put this on the screen here. So
KUF one I.
Oh, KUF
IYA.
Oh yeah, that's my keyboard messing up. I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're doing great.
That. We're doing great. Thank you. But there we go. KUFIYA.org. Check out the link you see on the screen right now. I also just said it and I will say it again. KUFIYA.org is where you can both benefit the Palestinian cause and also get one of these stylish keffiyehs that
and get it in any color. It doesn't need to be black and white. The red and white ones are usually associated with like socialist movements, which are kind of fun. But there are lots of colors and it's fun. Get whatever fits your outfit.
And if you would, and we talked about this a little before, so I hopefully you'll appreciate it. Like, how have you, before I get to the rest of my questions, like, how have you sort of approached, using your appearance, using being blonde hair, blue eyes, conventionally attractive, in a lot of other ways attractive,
Thank you.
Not just conventionally, but like, how have you tried to balance that? Because being online in a non-Palestinian or talking about Palestine context, that is also going to suck in a lot of ways. Like, it's going to benefit you in a lot of ways, but it's also going to suck with like the way you're harassed, the way like men sort of like idolize and abuse that sort of like idea. But also in talking about specifically this issue, which triggers both the Israeli nationalists and also the white supremacists. As a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman,
fake blonde,
you're pulling it off better. You're pulling it off better than a lot of other pundits I know. How have you been kind of balancing using that to your advantage, or like has it been able to work to your advantage?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a lot of experience with this. I talk about far right pundits in media all the time, and so my appearance is always under a lot of scrutiny. It's helped in the past because people listen when there's a attractive person on screen, even if they're just there to objectify you. In several cases, I've had literal Nazis message me and be like, I was watching your stuff to jack off to, but I was de-radicalized because I actually heard what you were saying, which is both disturbing and good, I guess. For this, I
God bless
the fact
you.
that this happened more than once, I was like, I don't even know what you want from me at this point. But for this issue, it helps even more.
like, for example, things like, obviously a lot of people in Iran think gender is the primary contradiction in their society, and like in isolation, maybe that's right, but like who put the people that are doing the gender oppression in power? Like, why do they still have so much credibility and legitimacy? Because like Iran is a country that has been forced to, or was forced to, in some ways, kind of push back against Western imperialism at the same time as it pushed back against cultural liberalism and modernization, and these things got linked because people weren't ready to say, okay, let's be like, you know, socialists or whatever. And so I kind of see that as, I don't know, the best that we were going to do in that situation, given that there was no going on with a Western-backed dictator infinitely. I think people in my parents' generation would, for example, really disagree with that. And so I'm not saying like this isn't the only interpretation at all. A lot of them say things would have just slowly gotten better if we had just known better than to start something we couldn't finish. And I genuinely don't think that makes a lot of sense, just because, you know, these sort of puppet governments, they rise and fall, and there was obviously enough contradiction with, like, along these anti-imperialist lines, I think, within Iranian society, that it would have gone this way no matter what.
I want to go back to what you said about political Islam. Like, I do think that political Islam, and I don't really love that term, but
no, I haven't found a better word for it.
Yeah,
though,
but you, in using it, I do think it is a great revolutionary tool, but I don't think it's great when it comes to governance. That's where you just end up, for lack of better term, just like going backwards and just oppressing people. And, you know, it's just, you know, it just ends up bad, I think, for the citizenry of those countries. Ultimately, I
agree with you. I'm still a socialist, right?
Having been Muslim for 10 years and like in the world, in the Sunni world, where I used to, you know, it's funny because in those days I would argue with a lot of my friends. We're all Sunni, obviously. Like, well, how come none of the Sunni countries are helping Palestine? Like, my big argument would be when we're in the mosque or whatever, and they're talking about America helping Israel in the West and stuff, and all these white countries. I'm like, well, dude, what about the Muslim countries right there? Like, what about the Arab countries right there? Especially with all your Arab pride, how come none of them help? Like, they don't care. They're also, Egypt is one of the biggest allies to America. Like, get the second most military aid for America. All these countries are American allies.
But that all happened because the alternatives were actively thwarted by America.
But at the same time, like, I think there has to be some agency too. Like, not to skip ahead, but like, we saw what happened in the Arab Spring in Egypt. Like, they, for all intents and purposes, they elected the guy they wanted and gave him like a few months and were like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, they protested for him and then they protested against him and went right back to a military dictatorship. And that's what they want. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I have to give them agency for that. You know, I know that Whitey is meddling and doing all kinds of stuff, but at the same time, like, you got 80 million people. Like, at some point you got to figure it out. And if you had a military dictatorship, when he was taken out of power, you accepted another freaking general praising him. You got in Mohammed Morsi, and then you protested him out of there. I feel like he died in jail, or is he still in jail? I can't remember. Did he die?
I don't remember, but I think he might have.
Yeah, I think he died in jail. Like, you know, so like, I got to give some agency to these countries. Like, even when it comes to Saudi Arabia, like, I know people there. There's a lot of people there that do not like that they live in that monarchy. You know, I know there's a lot of people that are happy that some of these laws have changed in the recent years with MBS. Like, it's a bit more like it's less strict as it was. But you can see the example in Iran, which is like one of the true revolutions in world history, where the people rose up to get this guy the fuck out of here. You know, whatever happened after happened, but you know, it just hasn't happened in these countries, in these other like Sunni countries. And I think that I don't know, like I feel like that's what they want. And these governments are not going to lift a finger for the Palestinian people. And I think once the like war is over, I think they're all going to just line up to start let's do what we were doing before. Like that's just honestly what I see. I don't see Saudi Arabia wanting to like be like revolutionary. Like I don't see it. They want to have Nicki Minaj come perform. Like I think that they want to have the status quo and even better. I think for them, like what's going to be like quote unquote revolutionary is helping Gaza rebuild. That's not something that they would be interested in traditionally. I think they're going to try to do that. Maybe they'll send some peacekeeper soldiers there to like make sure Hamas doesn't come back. We'll make sure the transition to the Palestinian Authority goes well. I don't know. Actually, they won't do that, but they don't have soldiers.
Listen, I am sure Dan wants to come in with another question, but I just will.
Dan, no.
I will very briefly.
Sorry, really briefly, Kumars, I want to set you up for whatever response you have to BAM, but also to attempt to wrangle this conversation. Wow, tasting my own medicine right here. To attempt to wrangle this conversation to the main point. I wanted to ask as a follow-up to you, Kumars, like, how have your opinions around the conflict around Israel and Palestine kind of evolved? And I hate using the word conflict, but YouTube doesn't, so I use that word. And so, yeah, while also answering BAM's questions, and while y'all are talking, and this is awesome because I've been recording all day, so I'd love to take a lunch break. But yeah, like how have you, like, you talked about this a little bit in what you were just describing, but how have your sort of like priors, your way you view politics and news evolved since, you know, literally last year?
I mean, a lot of it was really what I was saying to Bam there about, you know, the way I view Islam, the way I see a lot of actors that are socially conservative in that region as the only legitimate sort of representatives of anti-colonial resistance, just based on the facts on the ground. I think the thing that I would say the only thing that I would really say in response to what Bam is saying, because if with Bam, all you're doing is just taking a very logical position, which is like just to be pessimistic and say things are going to roughly end up back where they were, but maybe in a slightly altered form. I'm imagining that there is no real off-ramp from the trajectory that Israel is on, where by the time Mohammed bin Salman has to make a decision, let's say it's a few years from now, let's say it's 10 years from now, Nicki Minaj will not go to Israel ever. And everyone will know that Nicki Minaj doesn't go to Israel because the Barbs rose up and were like, we have solidarity, just like everybody else of our generation. We're not going to buy your music if you go to fucking Israel. And she won't go. And there'll be this, I mean, I see the sort of Don't Play Sun City vibe that we were trying to make happen for the entire time that I was active in SJP, finally catching on as like an organic pop culture phenomenon among younger people. And I don't think that's going to slow down. So I just wonder if, and we haven't even gotten to talk about this, but like the economic damage that Israel has sustained in the last year is unprecedented, like by a lot. You had like 34 billion shekels drained from the Israeli stock market since October 7th. I don't know what that is in dollars, but I'm sure it's a lot. The existing situation had already made it worse. Like Israel's making the way, I guess part of the way that I see it now is that Israel is constantly making decisions that are hastening its own downfall. Whereas I didn't necessarily think that they were all out in that direction before. But like, think about this, like Netanyahu's judicial overhaul, which again, like I don't care about at all because like fuck them, but that had already prepared economists and investors in Israel for an economic collapse, because it's no longer a fair and reliable place to do business, right? The foreign investment relies on strong liberal courts to protect property rights. And if your legal system is like a tool of religious zealotry, that's already going to make companies think twice about investing. A lot of like, I guess what I'm saying is like a lot of the stuff that's happening is like not because the BDS movement won some kind of PR war. It's like because Israel lost its sheen of security, invincibility, and normalcy. And you can look, I mean, the estimates right now that I'm seeing from like economists, and even I think Mearsheimer said this recently, cited this, that about 500,000 Israelis have left permanently the country as a result of this. And every year that goes on, the brain drain of educated, you know, economically productive professionals is going to get worse. And you're going to have these fucking communalist settlers who are just religious fascists left as the main kind of working demographic of your country. I think there's a lot of ways that Israel will be broken down and made into an unattractive partner, something not worth saving. That's how I see it.
Okay, you know, honestly, I can see that. I just don't see it. I can see that. I don't necessarily see that for like that happening because of Palestinians. But I can see that happening, and I've actually predicted that. Not like, oh, you know, I said it before, but like you know, I think it will depend on what kind of governments we elect here, what kind of governments are elected in Europe. We've already Macron the other day saying that there should be an arms embargo against Israel. Netanyahu did not like that. But I can see that happening. But at the same time, like, you know, Israel can lose a lot and still exist. I mean, like, Lebanon is basically a failed state. Like, so you can be pretty fucked up in that region and still survive. And honestly, like, it is what it is at this point. Like, Israel's there. Like, I'm not advocating for them to just be wiped off the map or whatever. Like, I'm not, unless we want to talk offline. No, I'm joking. There has to be like some kind of diplomatic solution. And we've talked about it here on Power Report before, like, what has happened in Gaza since October 7th, 2023 is just been like unprecedented level of violence by Netanyahu. You know, we saw in 2021, you know, they were like shooting at civilians running up, like they were going up to that fence and stuff like that. And, you know,
and also in 2018 was when that was the Great March of Return, I think.
Right.
Also.
And because like though, like I remember because those are like the times I went to protest.
Yeah.
And obviously we know like who Netanyahu is, but like I think this response to October 7th is like, you know, for those of us who have been you know, who've been keeping track of or, you know, involved in what goes on in that region for a long time, like you kind of you expect a response, but like this has just been overboard. And my in my heart, like in my heart, and this is what I've been saying on Power Report, I really, really hope that those people didn't die for no reason. Like, it just goes back to what it was. Like, I really hope for a better future for the people of Gaza after this, like, you know, 40, 50,000 people being massacred and civilians. Like, to be clear, Israel, like, actually, I just remember something you said, like, you mentioned Israel fighting a ground war. Like, I don't think Israel's, like, ever really interested in actually fighting a ground war. I think they just, you know, we'll send some troops into southern Lebanon, or we'll send some troops on the ground in Gaza. They're not really interested in fighting a ground war because it is like this ethno-religious settler colonial state. They need people. Like there ain't really that many people that can come from Russia anymore. Nobody's leaving France to go to Israel like that, or Argentina or whatever. So they don't really want to like put their soldiers in the meat grinder that much. Israel, the IDF, their tactic when it comes to fighting is to target civilians. Like that's what they do, is target civilians.
But that doesn't work. Like the West has also seen that you can't win a war or defeat your enemies that way. This is what I think, and this is going to sound like this is going to make your controversial takes look tame, but I don't think Netanyahu is that irrational. Like I actually think Netanyahu understands how unnatural Israel is, and that it can only exist if everybody else in the region is terrified of it. After October 7th, it's really, really difficult to be terrified of Israel in the way that people were supposed to be before. And that's what Netanyahu knows. I think he has to kill every last person. He thinks he has to kill every last person who believes in support for Palestinians across the region in order to feel safe. And, this sense of like the neighbors of Palestinians, I think a new kind of pan-Arabism through this Shia influence has arisen just in the past year.
I don't think so.
I think the solidarity is real with people in a lot of these places, and we can disagree on that, I guess. But I'm willing to bet.
I would love it.
I
would love it, but I feel like I want now. Granted, like I'm not everywhere, but like in a lot of these places, the local imam has a lot of influence over people, and sadly, and I say this sadly, there is a lot of real hatred when it comes to Sunni Shia relations.
I know.
There's a lot, and there's a lot of people that's like, I don't care as long as like Iranians don't take over. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that. Kumars,
we don't need those people. They just have to sit back. Like the Sunni, but they're in the government though. Like they control. Like the government is repressive. The people's opinions on the street doesn't matter unless they're going to rise up again, which I'm totally down for. Okay,
and I don't. Listen. Let me just respond to one thing you said. I don't think that. I don't think that the other countries in the region are like terrified of Israel. I think they're just chilling. Like they're just like, okay, yeah, Israel's there, and like, like before, sometime before, it was like, okay, we can't really have relations with them because it looks bad for us. But like as that changed, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll have some relations with Israel. Like, who cares? It's just for them, it's just another country in the Middle East. Like, I don't think they're necessarily terrified because they don't have any conflict with them. Egypt does not have conflict with Israel. I remember when Ariel Sharon went to Egypt, they were kissing his hand. Unbelievable. I could not believe it.
Yes, I mean, they don't have beef with Israel now because they're comprador governments. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that the Sunni world has to be involved in this anymore. Like, I think, listen, if the resistance, the Shia axis of resistance commits to this long-term strategy of Iran playing sort of the rational actor and again, you may not agree, but I think in many ways, including what I've already said about the economy, Israel is just sort of digging its own grave. It's losing international support. The IDF is being stretched thinner and thinner. It's just a matter of years before Israel's comparative military advantage, as you already said, this really is limited to spying, assassinations through the intelligence that they do, and like carpet bombing population centers. I think that comparative edge is going to be overtaken, if not dwarfed, by the strategic depth of the resistance partners.
I don't even think that Israel actually has an advantage over its neighbors. I do not think they have a military advantage. I think if Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan said today we're fucking Israel up, it will be.
But that's not what I'm saying.
Kumars, you have the last word. Yes.
So much. I guess what I'm saying is that just like it's not that important what we do in the West to how this ends, I think that also to some extent the Sunni countries have shown that they are not going to be actively involved until the balance of power is really decisively shifted. And I think that just this axis of resistance can wear down Israel, not only at an operational level, but also to make it more toxic globally and in the region. That's just the way I see it. I think China is also involved here, playing good diplomatic role in Saudi-Iran relations. I mean, they also were the ones that brought all the Palestinian factions together to create a unity government, which is technically still in force, even if obviously the Palestinian Authority can't be relied on to do anything. So I guess that's where I see this going. Is there's so many other geopolitical factors as well that won't allow a renormalization of Israel, but we're probably not going to get to the bottom of that.
No, honestly, let me just say this before Dan sticks his nose in here for no reason. I'm loving this conversation, and like our disagreement.
We'll have to continue it. We'll definitely have to continue.
Okay, but hold on, Dan. Our like disagreement, I feel like is like healthy, and it like makes me happy.
Because it's healthy for me to hear this from you.
Yeah, and I like to hear this from you too. Like I'm like, because I wish I felt like you. Like I'm like, yeah, like the Houthis and Iran and Hezbollah and like these a few dudes in Iraq can take Israel.
Excuse me, they're the Islamic resistance in Iraq. Thank you very much.
So, like a few years ago, these dudes were.
Yeah, no, I know.
A few years ago,
this is just Khatib Hezbollah and like a couple other of their friends.
A few years ago, these guys in Iraq were in death squads, literally like slaughtering Sunni people in Iraq. I digress, though. I wish I felt like they could do it. I don't feel like they can do it only because, like, I really think it would have to be the neighbors, like the countries that are surrounding Israel. But I do agree with you on a lot of what you said, and then I'm gonna be done in 2 seconds. I do agree that Israel is digging its own grave. It's way more unpopular than it has ever been. I don't know to what extent like the IDF's resources are being stretched, but like whatever, like you're shooting missiles and bullets, like you lost those forever, so it's not good for what Israel's doing. And I do agree with you that Netanyahu, he's not a dummy. I do think a lot of this is so he can keep his political seat because he's facing a lot of trouble domestically. And I really hate him, Dan.
Okay. I love this conversation.